Welcome back to the Rodcast, Tuesday edition of the Rodcast. Lots to get into on the show. Of course, we'll talk Monday Night Football. The Texans, they put an Old Testament style butt whipping on the Dallas Cowboys. No surprise there. We'll get into it and talk about all the details from the game last night. We'll also get into really the fate of the Dallas Cowboys going forward. Cowboys fans right now at one of the kind of the all-time lows, I think, for the franchise. We'll get into it and talk about it. We'll also talk about the Texans right now. Hopefully, this can spark something for the Texans moving forward. We'll also get into Texas Longhorns conversation. Sark had his Monday media availability. Thanks to the hard work of my man Patrick. We got some audio of Steve Sarkisian. We'll that when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. We'll still review a little bit of last week's game and their win over Arkansas, but we'll start to look ahead just a little bit to their upcoming opponent, the Kentucky Wildcats. A lot of people thought this would be a trap game. We'll see if that still ends up being the case, but we'll talk about that, get into some Texas football conversation. There's also other NFL news, notes, and nuggets to get to. How about this quarterback class? This quarterback class starting to look pretty impressive from this rookie campaign. We'll get into that coming up a little bit later on the show in Rod's Rant. We also got your usual favorites on the show. We got What the Facts, What the Stats. We got Who Said That. We got Off the Record, the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We are jam-packed and loaded as always. So glad you could join us. Before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the Aryan family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It is our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
Doing good. Doing good on Tuesday morning, and that was an interesting game. I don't know if I've ever watched a 24-point win with more disgust than watching that game. It's just not a fun game to watch.
I was saying, which side are you talking about there?
Both sides. Both sides
yeah.
were not playing at the level that you want them to play at.
That's fair. That's true. It was surprising in a lot of ways. It didn't play out the way I thought it would play out.
Yeah.
The result was kind of how we thought the result would be.
Yes.
But I'm with you. The game, it didn't play out. It took some twists and turns that I did not expect.
Yeah, let's put it this way.
Yes.
I built the panic button by the end. I started building the panic button in the first half. Like when you were going into half by up a touchdown, you're like, this is not how this is supposed to go.
No,
Texans, you are giving the game away right now.
Hey, Cowboys are fighting now. I'll give Cowboys credit. The Cowboys, the Cowboys players, they're playing with pride and they're playing with effort. It's not necessarily great, the result and the execution, but no, they're fighting. They're fighting like hell. And the Texans, like you said, Texans are a flawed team, so it ended up being a close game. At least for obviously the first half of the game.
Yes.
Then the Texans pulled away in the second half, but yeah, because of the non-offensive touchdown and the pick six, they pulled away from it. But there's still some issues. Nico Collins, he didn't fix all the issues or didn't mask all the issues.
No.
There's still some there.
No, I like looking at the stats after the game. I felt both teams were over 100 yards in penalties. It just felt like both teams were over 100 yards in penalties.
Well, they started out just throwing penalty flags. I believe the first two plays
were both penalties. Yeah, it was.
They called it, and I was like, okay, this is setting a bad vibe already. No, I'm with you. So it did not play out the way I thought.
No, it felt like it was a much worse game, and I think it was. Yeah, once you got to the end, and it was just kind of a foregone conclusion, but it was still not pretty. You're just like, all right. Hey man, thank goodness we got Joe Mixon on this team. Thank goodness.
Joe Mixon was about his business. He was. He looked fantastic.
Do you think the Bengals are watching that right now and they're like, "Yeah, man, good trade, solid trade."
It does look in retrospect now. It looks terrible because that's the only thing they're not really good at. Off as a team, it's running the football. Everything else, they got the league leader in reception, like in receiving yards, league leader in sacks. They got Joe Burrow who's playing like a top 5 quarterback. It's the only thing that they're bottom of the league in, and kind of like bottom 10 in the league in, or bottom 5 is running the football.
Yeah,
and Joe Mixon now is having a resurgence. So I'm with you. That's they're probably looking at that going, yeah, that was probably a dang That was a miscalculation.
Might have been
a
bit of a miscalculation.
Yeah, slightly. Hey, yeah, you're right about that.
Who doesn't make miscalculations is my co-host. Let me introduce him. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is a new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate that, but I'll be the first one to say that. Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. Yes, but I appreciate the intro as always, brother. All right, so we got a lot to get into. We'll talk about the Cowboys, and we'll get into the Texans a little bit too. Of course, we got your Horn headlines coming up as well, and we'll talk some Longhorn football. I went back and looked at my notes about how Sark handled the 3 high defense. I'll share that with you coming up a little bit later on, and we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about their upcoming opponent and talking about a special night coming up. I mean, this is they call it senior night, but they got to find another name for it because now guys, a lot of guys, if you're at Texas and you're doing really well, guys who are leaving aren't seniors. They are, sometimes they're juniors going to the NFL. Sometimes they're guys who are about to transfer. It's my last. It's like your whatever they got to find a term. Your last game at DKR.
I believe Craig was calling it. I believe Craig was calling it on Saturday the farewell game.
Oh, there you go.
I believe he was on board with it.
Classy way. That's a good way to do it.
The Longhorns are still calling it senior night. They're still calling it that. But I think Craig was trying to ease into it to the guys. We understand as media, that this is a farewell game, and we'd like to say farewell to everyone who will be leaving.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I believe he was referring to it as a farewell game.
Of course, my man Seaway finds the perfect way to describe it. I agree. It's you gotta for us, I think it is kind of farewell because of the transfer portal and the new landscape of college sports. A lot of guys are just leaving.
Yeah.
Just because of the natural turnover that you have on football teams now all across the country. So yeah, it is kind of that. I don't know if it's, I don't know if you get sentimental about it for those players, but for the guys who have been, who have kind of been around the program for a while. And for Sark, it is a special class. I mean, this is the last group that was in it with him when he first came. All right. After this, those guys are gone.
Yes. It's basically everyone he's recruited now.
Yes, these are the last guys he inherited.
Yes.
I guess I should say, like the last group, which was it's a special group. Think about that group. I mean, that's like Baron Sorrells and your Jade Barons and your right.
That's, you look at Gunnar Helm that was part of that group that came in, that he inherited, that was recruited it before he got there, and what he's meant to the team this year.
No, I agree with you. That's a special group that he's got that he inherited. So exactly, most of those guys, and maybe like 1 or 2 of those guys that still may be around the program, but I believe most of those guys will be in this.
There is also the other factor that there is. You look at it a little bit and say there may be another home game now that the playoffs. There is a chance for another home game, but it would be a playoff home game. No, and you're hoping there's not. Yeah, because if you win out, there's not.
Yeah, it's a good point.
You get the bye if there's not another home game, but if you drop one of these games, you may end up with a home game. So
yeah, that's fair. I really think about that. Yeah, the changing landscape of college sports, you have to kind of redefine everything.
Yes,
as you go, real time. All right, so we'll talk about that. We'll get into a lot of that Longhorn football discussion when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. But first, let's get to it. Let's get the Horn headlines, and then we'll dive into the matchup last night. Texans with a big win over the Dallas Cowboys. But first, let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with my man Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Rockets lost a nail-biter to the Bucks last night, snapping a 5-game win streak for Houston. Damian Lillard made the game winner with 3 seconds left, and the Rockets didn't have an answer. Fred VanVleet once again led the way for Houston with 26 points. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Pelicans, and the Spurs face the Thunder as NBA Cup play resumes. And in the NFL, the Texans got a 34-10 win over the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Joe Mixon scored 3 touchdowns with over 150 all-purpose yards to pace Houston in the victory. Both teams play divisional games next week, with Dallas taking on the Commanders and Houston playing the Titans. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. The injury to insult for the Dallas Cowboys in that game. They also had some guys get nicked up and go down in that game. So I think that's a concern too, because I think the second half you saw Tyler Guyton and Zach Martin and Tyler Smith all get knocked out of the game for some reason or another. So I know for Cowboys fans, that's obviously a big concern. So we'll try to keep you updated with that if we hear anything. But it was an ugly game. I mean, the Texans, I never was worried Texans were going to lose the game. Even though I will say Cooper Rush throwing for 354 yards and throwing it 55 times, I did not have on my bingo card. I do believe that is, I think any quarterback throwing it that much is probably a mistake. I don't know how that happens. Now, I know they couldn't really move the football running it, but man, 55 times. uh, I think only 9 throws of his 55 were beyond the sticks. I mean, I guess that is progress for the Cowboys, but I think they got to find a way to be a little bit more balanced in 55 passes against the Texans. But the Texans didn't have the pass rush they usually do because Will Anderson wasn't there. So I think that helped them too, because the only real pressure they could generate was from Danielle Hunter. And Danielle Hunter is, man, we don't talk about him enough. He's a beast, by the way.
Yeah.
He is leading the NFL right now in pressures. He's got 72. He's got 15 more than the next closest player, which is Trey Hendrickson, who's leading the NFL in sacks right now. Now, Danielle Hunter has like 7.5 sacks. Aiden Hutchinson has 7.5 sacks, just to give you some
how good he
give
is.
you a little context about how crazy the season was. He was about to threaten the all-time sack record.
Yeah.
There was no guys. He had 7.5. He went down. What was that? It's like a month. It was like 5 weeks ago. What was that? How long ago was that? That he went down? He went down like a month ago.
He went down a while ago.
The Detroit Lions playing the Cowboys, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No, and the reality was too, when you play on a team that's up by 20 points in every game.
That's a good point. I guess you scored 50 burgers on teams.
You're just like, they have to throw it every play.
And so think about how many sacks he would have had when
That's what I'm saying.
Against yeah. No, you're right.
You had the bonus of your offense is really good, so you're just teeing off in that whole. Basically, the entire second half is you teeing off.
Yeah. No, I didn't. Yeah. Sorry to get it derailed, but I saw that and I was like, I cannot believe that Aiden Hutchinson 7.5 sacks. That's what did on. Anyway, I believe Will Anderson also has 7.5 sacks. I think both of them actually have 7.5 sacks on the season. If I'm not mistaken. I do think the Texans do have potentially the best bookend edge rushers in the league. The combo of them, I should say, in the league. But without Will Anderson, they weren't able to generate a pass rush, so they didn't get to Cooper Rush as much as they should have. But they did get a pick 6 with a great strip sack by Derek Barnett. That was a hell of a play. That was
double
a crazy
strip sack.
A double, yeah, it was a 2 forced fumbles basically on the same. It was a strip sack and then a forced fumble on the same play. Strip sack. Tyler Guyton, the O-line for the Cowboys, he recovers the Barnett strip sack, and then Jalen Petrie, I believe, forces the fumble from Tyler Guyton, and then Barnett recovers it initially, and then he ends up getting the touchdown. That was a beautiful play. The irony of it is great. That Barnett ended up getting the forced fumble and essentially that's what seals the deal. Like that's ultimately, I don't think it was a game where the Texans were in danger of losing the game. I don't think that was ever the case, but it was a much closer game at halftime and for 3 quarters than I thought it would be, considering the Texans are a much better team right now.
No, and I mean, if you take away the one play that was really hard to watch for the Texans, where 2 defenders bite as hard as you possibly could bite on a Turpin fake, and it cuts inside, and 2 defenders take like 3 steps the wrong direction as Turpin just walks into the end zone. I mean, to have Kalen Bullock do that as a safety to overcover on that side too, so he's way out of position to come back and make that tackle. If he just doesn't do it, then you're still okay on that play, and they probably only get a field goal out of it. But yeah, you're basically, the one touchdown you allow was 2 guys getting just making a bad call at the beginning of the play.
Yeah, no, and he was moving on that. They say he got up to 22.3 miles per hour. That is the fastest speed by a ball carrier this season, and the fastest by a Cowboys ball carrier since 2016, since they started keeping track of it by Next Gen. So he was moving, and once he got it, he was gone. I mean, that was that to me, for the Cowboys. I mean, that was them actually giving themselves a schematic advantage. Was able to spread things out and that was they ended up having 5 guys out on routes, and it was a simple throw that Cooper Rush could
Yeah.
make.
No, and I mean, and
And
that's the thing is I think it was a
take
good
advantage
play
of your
for the
speed.
it was a good play for the Cowboys because even if Bullock doesn't bite, it's still a 20-yard gain.
Oh yeah, no, it's just like I said, and it was simple
Yeah, exactly.
execution play, something you can do. So I'll give the Cowboys credit for that. But man, that was so many. I don't know. There was so many stupefying moments for the Cowboys early on too. The fake punt. I don't know why they keep doing it. And it's this that their own 30-yard line. Brian Anger threw that. He threw the pass short of the line to gain anyway.
Yeah.
That set up the Texans' first touchdown, basically, of the game. That was, yeah, that was your own coach, working against you. I don't know who called it. I don't know why he didn't veto that. But when you're a bad team, I know you got to try to make your own breaks as a bad team like the Cowboys. I don't know if that was the right call.
No, Fassel apparently has fake punts on every single game plan. He's ready to go for it. Their special teams coordinator. Apparently, that's his big thing. Is he loves fakes. But if you're Mike McCarthy, this is now 2 that you have called that have gone blown up in your face. We're not good enough to pull these off.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And the thing is, we have a coordinator that basically the Texans understand these guys like to fake punt. John Fassel likes to call fake punts. So show them that you're going to go you're bringing the house and drop one guy back. All you had to do is drop one guy back, and you were safe. And it was a good call by the Texans to have that guy come back. So he doesn't, it's a first down, but at the same part, you know that this guy likes to do fake punts, so they had to do it early because if they wait, then everybody knows they're going to do it. So you tried to do it early to catch him off guard. But at the same part, I get if you're the Cowboys, you're in that mode of, we have to score. We can't get behind in this game. If we get behind, we're done. But I just don't. There was questionable play calling a lot of, in the first quarter, already basically thinking you're going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the desperation because you're desperate. Period.
You are, but you can't in the NFL. That's not. I mean, that's a college kind of mindset.
That's a great. That's very much. I agree with you on that. That's very much the right description of it. It's kind of a college mindset.
College mindset. When you're they have 5 stars, we got 2 stars. They're going to destroy us. So let's try everything and throw it at the wall. In the NFL, you all have NFL players.
Yeah, you still got a shot.
Yeah,
you did. I mean, up until like I said, that was an easy score that you basically gave up. Kind of led to easy points for the Texans and their first touchdown of the game. They were going to score, but you didn't have to make it that easy on them because, as you just pointed out, the Texans were, other than Joe Mixon, there are times where they were working against themselves. Bobby Sloak still has some issues in his early down play calling. They weren't in 3rd and long as much as I thought. They were in 3rd and long. I think 5 out of there. I think they had 12. They were 12 total 3rd downs. They were 4 of 12. They weren't great on 3rd down, period, by the way. That's just an issue, but they only had 5 3rd and longs. That's, that's not excessive. So I think that's not something that I thought was a big deal. They did also score a touchdown in the second half. Well, they scored 2, actually. I'm talking an offensive touchdown in the second half. So that's also something that they had to rectify because that was something that, and it still may be an issue, and maybe that's just the Cowboys they were going up against. But they have trouble with second half scoring, and they've had trouble issues with second half scoring. Not the case for their game against the Cowboys. Also, something else I was watching was Nico Collins, and oh man, it was so fitting that they started the game, first play of the game, offensively, that it's a wide receiver screen to Nico Collins. He goes 77 yards, something like that.
Yeah.
And hamstring looks amazing. We're like, oh, no hamstring issues. He just burnt off on the entire Cowboys defense, and they called it back because of Laramie Tunsil. Oh man, ineligible man downfield. And he was. It was. I mean, he got way too far downfield too early. Pretty much on the play. Oh man, but it was. But either way, as a Texans fan, you felt good that you saw Nico, stretch out that hamstring and hit, top speed and look like there were no issues at all. But you also, there was also a troubling comfort when you're like, oh, of course, Laramie Tunsil, the most penalized offensive lineman in the league, Of course, just like old times, he out there and he
makes
ends
a
up
mental
making
error.
a mental mistake. Yeah, making a mental mistake, and they call it all the way back. And I was like, "Yep." So Nico does not fix all the problems. Nico, but you saw the flashes, though. You know what I mean, of what Nico can do to uplift the offense, but there's still the limitations of
Yeah.
the offense because of the mental errors like that. So to me, I thought that perfectly encapsulated the Texans' issues, what they're capable of, but ultimately they're their own worst enemy in a lot of those situations.
Yeah.
And they were for some of that game versus the Cowboys, if not for Joe Mixon and his stellar performance.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought there was parts of that. I know CJ Stroud missed the pass on that 4th down play call earlier in the game, but I thought that was it's just run the ball. Like, you just run the ball. It's not that complicated. And you're trying to trick everybody and chunk it downfield, but you're just making
the interception.
Yeah. Which
Yeah.
where you're like, I don't know why you're making this so much harder than it has to be. But I think that kind of fell into the thing with Bobby Slowick somewhat, which we saw last week. That sometimes when he gets the ball and he's not supposed to have it, it feels like he doesn't know what to do with himself. Like on turnovers and things like
change.
that. Yeah, where it's sudden change.
Yeah.
He just doesn't he doesn't know what to do in that quick moment to call and go, okay, let's start, like, just immediately start going downfield and let's start working on it. It feels like he goes, okay, well, I don't want to use my next long drive, so I don't know how to start a drive in their territory.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because usually, I don't know, the thought process, you take a shot after a sudden change.
Yeah.
They always told us as defensive guys, hey, sudden change. And sudden change basically means they're coming at you. They're about to be really aggressive because they want the momentum. They feel the momentum's on their side and they want to use it. And so that's the usual train of thought. I don't know if Bobby Slowick believes in that, but that's what they used to tell us back in the day. That, hey, man, they're going to take a shot. This is going to be not necessarily all the time like a deep shot downfield, but it's going to be a big play. They want a chunk yardage play here because they want to keep the momentum on their side. It's a great point. He could be panicked in those situations, not ready for it. I think Bobby Slowick's just, he's still, I just think on early downs, he doesn't really have an early down identity, and it's crazy. Well, I think in this game, he just made it easier because, I mean, just give the ball to Joe Mixon. And when Joe Mixon's on, it's great. But there are times where they should be mixing and matching a little bit better the run and the pass on early downs. And with Bobby Slowick, you don't really have that. He's a bit, simplistic.
Yeah,
that's the best way to say it on early downs. And then comes up with his creative stuff on some of those later downs. But like you said, you thought he got too creative on the 4th down there when they were going for it. It's like, hey, man, you're running the ball at a pretty good clip. You can run the ball. I forgot what yardage to gain was it on that 4th?
2, I think. It was 4th and 2.
Yeah, it was pretty short.
Yeah.
And I thought they had it underneath the route that looked like it cleared open on that. I got to go back and watch it. But either way, it was a bad throw.
No, it was a bad throw. It was
bad throw.
I mean, and that's what you look at is CJ Stroud is somewhat regressing at this point in the season. And how much of that is, well, he lost his receivers, and how much of that is there's just so much pressure that he is, now starting to have to change his footwork and everything else because he's just getting too much pressure. And how much of that is Bobby Slowick calling a game that he is no longer feeling.
Yeah.
And I think it's a piece of all of those. It was only sacked one time, but there was several free runners at him.
Yeah.
And there were several times where there was pressure.
I saw Overshown get a free shot at him at one time.
Yeah. So I don't know how much of that is. I think it's probably a piece of all of those that are leading to it. But it's frustrating because you look at it and go, you have this star quarterback, make his life a little bit easier. And it doesn't feel like his life is being made easier in any way. Now that Nico's back, that helps.
Yeah, Nico will help out.
Nico will help out a lot. That, of course, great play call in the first, but got to have discipline on your team. I don't know if they don't discipline them for doing that in practice. I don't know what happens. That seems like that play probably got run in practice. How many times do you think first play of the game?
Oh, I mean, they obviously that was on the script, and it was like, we're going to our guy. We're going to start the game with our guy.
So it was run enough times that it should be pretty clear that you don't run 3-4 yards downfield.
And they obviously is perfect execution.
Yeah.
Except for
one guy took 3 steps instead of 1.
Yes. Yeah. He wandered that field too far. Oh man. Yeah, you're right about that. But I'm with you. I think it is what's happening with the Texans offense is multifactorial. It's a lot going on with the Texans offense. So I think it's some on the O-line, some on Bobby Slowick. CJ is, I think, responsible for some of it. He takes ownership of it too, by the way. But I still think he is playing, pretty well considering, like you said, the pressure rates working against him. He was only sacked and only hit once. He was hit once and sacked once in this game. That's pretty good for the most hit quarterback in the NFL going into this week. And somebody who was dealing with pressure upwards of I haven't seen the pressure rate. I gotta go check and see what the pressure rate was. But the last 4 weeks, it's been upwards of 40% or higher. And that's close to damn near half your dropbacks where you got to deal with pressure at CJ and more unblocked pressures, as we even saw in that Cowboys game. More unblocked pressures, guys running free at your quarterback than any quarterback in the league too.
Yeah,
that's a lot for a quarterback to deal with. So I don't think we're dealing with the second year slump and all that kind of stuff. I think he's playing well. I thought we'd see him take another step toward elite status. That I will admit we have not seen, and be like in the MVP conversation. That we have not seen. But I don't think we've seen like a constant regression. I think it's been a little inconsistent just because of all the factors that you mentioned. Yeah. And that's a lot to deal with. Mixon helps and Nico helps because now you have some consistent elements in the offense you can rely on. That's going to help Slowick. That's going to help CJ as well. But yeah, the pass protection issues, getting too far behind the chains, 3rd and long issues, the save me CJ recipe. Those are things I think inherently that may be systemic that they got to figure out before they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, because
otherwise they're not going to last long.
There was a play early in the game where CJ, it's play action and then he rolls left, and he gets the ball off. And it's a 7-8 yard gain. But in the play, Micah Parsons had unblocked.
He has a guy in his face,
and it's Micah Parsons.
I remember this.
It's the best player on the other team. So you say it's because I get it. You go sometimes, if you're going to let a guy go, you have to let a guy go. That's partially on CJ too. That's part of the read. So all those pieces are in there. But you go, hey, there's one guy you never let free, just ever, because he can end your season. He hits that hard. He's that fast. He's that strong. You just don't ever let him get a free shot at your quarterback. And you did. And that's part on CJ because you should be able to make sure you know how the play is supposed to go. And you need to make sure your protections are right. But at the same part, everything feels like Bobby Slowick is calling this like he has an MVP quarterback, and he doesn't right now. And if you're Bobby Slowick and you're DeMeco Ryans, you have to put out your game plan to protect your quarterback a bit more than what you're doing now, which is, no, CJ will save us. No, man, you can't keep calling plays like CJ will save you because he's not right now. And you're just making it worse and worse and worse because you keep calling it the game in a way that he's playing like he's an MVP, and he's not playing like an MVP right now. So if you can get him back and get his confidence back and get him a little bit more time, then maybe you can get back into that world. But until then, you can't just keep hope and a prayer, because when you start playing better teams, it's going to go downhill really, really quick.
Well, it has, right? You beat Buffalo. That was the good team you played, but you haven't beaten a good team other than Buffalo. That's a good win, though. That's a hell of a win.
You had 5 interceptions against Detroit and lost.
Yeah, and you've made elite quarterbacks look. Your defense has made elite quarterbacks look pedestrian.
Yes,
like your defense. Like I said, hell, you just not that Cooper Rush is elite, but Daniel Hunter had 2 sacks in this game. But what they did to Josh Allen and that game he had, that was one of the worst games of his career. Jared Goff had one of the worst games of his career, and they're rolling right now. That Detroit's a juggernaut. That defense, with DeMeco Ryans, he's dialing up a great defensive game plan to give you a chance versus elite quarterbacks. So now your offense got to match. They got to start matching that energy. You know what I mean? Because otherwise, you're right. You can only stay in it for so long. A good defensive game plan will only keep you in it for so long with a good quarterback. Hell, Josh Allen was starting to mount a comeback. Yeah. Remember, the Bills were starting to, they're going to find a way to break through.
Yeah,
they will. But if your offense can put them away, like kind of kind of how Buffalo did against Kansas City. You got to have an offense that can put him away. Now that was a Superman moment where he put the cape on. I was reading that Josh Allen said, yeah, they called mesh concept. They called like crossing routes. It's called man beaters basically because they were expecting man coverage, and Kansas City ran zone, so Kansas City had the perfect defense calls for it, and Josh Allen just decided, oh hell, I gotta go.
Yeah,
gotta go make a play. That's this kind of stuff as a defensive coordinator. Like, what are you gonna do? You're like, I called the perfect play, and then this dude just decided, you know what? I'm putting my cape on. I'm gonna go win the damn game myself. Like those are special players. See, I think CJ Stroud's got some of that in him, and they got to find a way to harness that, and find a way to put him in a situation where he doesn't always, even like Josh Allen, play hero ball. Putting the cape on is different than playing hero ball. Playing hero ball, I think that's what Josh Allen's getting. That was the moment that he had versus Kansas City, where hey, I can just put the cape on when I need to. Otherwise, I'm good. I don't need to play hero ball the entire time. And it seems like that's sometimes what they expect from CJ. The hero ball moments a little too much.
No,
and
I agree.
So he's got the cape though. I do think the young man's got it. You see that, and even in that game, I mean, he still is pretty efficient. He's over 70% completion percentage. I mean, you're getting what you want from CJ, but are you getting the most out of him? Because I think we all thought he was going to be in the MVP conversation.
Exactly.
That's not happening right now.
No.
All right, Cowboys fans, I'll say this: some of the decisions that Mike McCarthy's making. I mean, in these moments when you're obviously talent deficient, where you don't have your starting quarterback. You're missing a lot of pieces. You're down and out because you're a losing football team. You really want to see those moments where your coach gives you a schematic or a tactical or strategic advantage, right? And you know that you're outmanned. You get it that it's a lopsided advantage for the opposing team, but you love to see your coach keep you in the game with savvy coaching moves. And you do not see that with Mike McCarthy. We brought up the fake punt. That was a terrible call early in the game. But then he took points off the board.
Yep.
Brandon Aubrey hit that 64-yard field goal, brought the Cowboys within 7 points. McCarthy it was a penalty on the play, chose to accept a penalty that took the field goal off the board. And I know he was just, like I said, I know what he's trying to do. Just like the punt, he's just like, hey man, I'm trying to, I'm really trying to infuse some energy with my team. I'm trying to get the momentum, right? I'm trying to take them, obviously be aggressive and take this team by surprise. I get it. I get that kind of energy, but man, you're taking points off the board from a team that struggles to score points. And then they went down and they ended up getting no points because they went for it on fourth down and ultimately came away with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two glaring coaching errors, in my opinion. And the 55 pass attempts for Cooper Rush. Come on, man. Cooper Rush, there's no quarterback should throw it 55 times in the game.
No.
No quarterback. I don't care how good you are. Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, no quarterback should throw it 55 times in the game, guys. That's no. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless that's a double, triple overtime game.
No,
like it shouldn't happen.
No, and then Rico Dotto's our guy. You still only ran him the ball 10 times. I know he wasn't getting anywhere, but now it's like, well, I'm just not running anybody anymore. So he's our guy, but that means we're just not going to run.
We're just giving up on the run game.
He's just not going. He's never going to get 20 carries. We're not doing that.
Yeah, they got to find you got to find other ways. I know they put in Deuce Vaughn and stuff, and they try to, I guess, add some juice to the run game. But I think that's the other one. It's like your game plan was him throwing it 55 times. No, against a Texans team that's one of the best secondaries and defenses in the league, pass defenses in the league. Actually, I don't know if that was a wise decision. All right, we come back. We'll go behind the Burnos curtain. Hear from Steve Sarkisian, talk about Texas and Texas, Arkansas, but also their upcoming opponent, Texas versus Kentucky. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation and hear from Steve Sarkisian after his Monday media availability. He always gives us some great insight from that press conference. Let's talk about the Texas kind of team identity, which I brought this up yesterday. I believe it is a team that's led by its defense. That's the most consistent part of this team, and it's the most elite element of this team. And I think that's surprising. I think it's surprising to Sark. It was surprising to me. I think surprising to most Longhorn fans who just didn't expect the defense to be this good. We expect the defense to improve, but not be in the conversation to be the best defense in the country. So Sark, I'm glad they asked him about this. Was asked about being led by the defense. And yes, Texas has a really good offense, but the offense has been a bit inconsistent. There are times where the offense has regressed and the defense has not. The defense has been consistent, getting better every week, and has remained a constant that fans and the team can count on from week to week. So here's what Sark had to say when he was asked about being led by the defense and having that identity rather than an offensive one.
I love it. I think it's a mentality, right? And it's the way that we go about our business. And I think the defensive players will probably tell you, and you guys have to ask them, but I'm very connected to those guys. I don't, I don't just gravitate to the offense, and that's easy to do, right? I'm over there, I'm calling the plays and whatnot, but I probably have better, to some degree, better relationships with the defensive players on our team than sometimes the offensive players, because I go overboard to make sure that I have those relationships. And so to watch those guys play the way they're playing right now, I'm like I said, very proud of them, very proud of our coaching staff of what they're doing. And they're doing it at a high level. And, we talked a lot of this season going into it about getting the ball back and what they're doing at such a high level of getting the ball back and taking the ball back for offense. They're stopping the run. They're minimizing the explosive plays. They're getting after the quarterback. They're just doing a lot of really cool things, and they're doing it in a way where they're celebrating it with one another. And that's a joy to watch as well.
All right. There are a lot of guys on that defense that are playing at a really high level as well. And I'm glad he said he liked being, a team with a defensive identity. I mean, why wouldn't you? It makes his job a lot easier. And I said yesterday, if fans start to look at the team in that, in that prism, and they start to view the team as a defensive led team, it'll probably ease a lot of your anxiety about the offense week to week and freaking out about the offense. Because I think the offense is right now it supplements in terms of complementary football whatever the defense is doing, and the defense is playing at the highest level of any defense probably in the country. And so they're not going to give up a lot of points, and teams are not going to be able to drive the football the length of the field on this defense very often, and so you can coach accordingly. Now, some people would say be more aggressive in that way, but Sarkis said that doesn't necessarily make him more aggressive. Actually, sometimes it makes him more conservative. He thinks about taking care of the football and field position and the ball security and clock management and time of possession, all those really boring things that Longhorn fans really don't want to think about. You'd rather think about, can Quinn throw the deep ball? And I get it, but it's a different, I think, recipe for Texas this year. That recipe also includes Alfred Collins, though, playing at a high level. I saw Pro Football Focus say he was the highest graded Week 12 defensive tackle in the country. Jahdae Barron had an amazing game, right? It was one of the best games we've ever seen for a Texas defender in the history of Texas football. Pro Football Focus had Alfred Collins graded higher than Jahdae Barron. He was the highest graded defensive player for Texas. He is taking his game to another level, and Dane Brugler put this tweet out yesterday and said, Alfred Collins is a great example of an NFL prospect who has made money by his play in 2024. 320, 6'5", 334 and 3/4 inch arms. His disruption and effort show up consistently on tape, including this forced fumble that locked up the win Saturday. Day 2 grade is what he says he has on him. Second round pick. Remember, I said Chris Jones starter kid. Chris Jones was drafted in the second round. So I'm not saying he's going to be Chris Jones. I'm saying if you squeeze every bit of talent out of him, he could have that kind of ceiling as a player. Not saying he is, but I'm just saying that's why he's going to get drafted in the same round as that guy, because I think that's the comp, or the ceiling comp, if you will. But here's Sark talking about Alfred Collins and also Kenny Baker, somebody who came in, I think, highly criticized. That was a highly criticized hire because he didn't have a lot of skins on the wall, didn't really have a lengthy resume, but there's no doubt people said he was a pass rushing specialist, like a professorial in his teaching of pass rushing skills. And there's no doubt across the board, the D-line's pass rushing prowess has no doubt improved. Here is Sark talking about the Alfred Collins and Kenny Baker.
I think, like anything, with opportunity comes responsibility. And I think Alfred has assumed the responsibility of the opportunity. Vernon's the same way. They're both playing at a really high level. Sometimes it's more difficult to remain consistent when I'm going to get my 10, 12, 15 plays. But when you're getting counted on for 35, 40 plays a game, you tend to lean into, I got to do all the little things right. And whether it's your hands, whether it's your footwork, whether it's fitting a run a certain way, staying in your gap, whatever that looks like. And so I think Alfred sees the moment and sees the opportunity and totally, like, I can't tell you guys enough. I know I'm speaking a lot on, because I'm reminiscing on a lot of these guys and knowing it's senior day, but like, so proud of him from where he's come to get to this point. And I remember doing press conferences, 3-4 years ago, talking about Alfred. What's the issue with Alfred? Well, consistency. All of a sudden now we have a really consistent player who's very talented and he's making a lot of plays for us.
What about
Kenny has been phenomenal. We always try to go out and just hire the best coaches that we can and not worry about what the resume looks like. And Kenny has been an awesome addition to what we're doing. I think the guys have really kind of bought into his style of coaching, and we're reaping the benefits of it. They're all playing at a really high level.
They are. I mean, in terms of pass rushing, I mean, these guys are creating a lot of pressure up front. Let's get to talking about the offense a little bit. This is a great question for Sark about the offense this year compared to the offense last year. Is this team as explosive as last year's team? Eye test wise, it doesn't feel like it is. I haven't looked at the stats on this, and I can go look at them. I'll probably have
the question that they ask in there. The stats are basically the same. So they're on pace. They're on pace to have the same as they had last year.
Okay. Yeah, it feels like that. It feels like it's just different. It's allocated differently because I think you had more in the running game last year. There's no question. You had to. And obviously might have more in the passing game this year. We'll have to see. But here's Sark when he was asked, hey, is this team as explosive as last year's?
I don't. If the numbers say that, sure. We're just trying to move the football. We're trying to win games. We're trying to do what's necessary to win games. What I was super impressed with our offense Saturday, in the fourth quarter, we had to have a drive, and it was a 3-point game. We needed a drive and we needed execution. They did that. We got a turnover, 6:55 left to go in the game. We needed to possess that ball the rest of the game. They did that. So as much as we want to look at explosive plays and all those kinds of things, and that's great offensive football, it's about execution in the moment and what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that's something that this offense is doing at a really high level. They are managing games in a way that is putting us in position to be successful. And we're creating explosive plays too, when that time comes. But I was that fourth quarter offensively, I couldn't have been more proud of those guys in the way that they managed the opportunity that they had.
There you go. So Sark's, he's not really sure either. But I just think it's different. It's a different explosivity than last season. I think last season you had more balance. This season, I think most of your explosive plays are in the passing game, and fewer of them are in the running. There's no doubt about that. Come on. Now, those little quick hitters, those swing screens and the detached screens, I mean, those are basically extensions of the running game. So they start behind the line of scrimmage with Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner. Matter of fact, we'll get into it later, but your most explosive play in the passing game was that Trey Wisner mesh rail concept where they throw it. I think it was may have been a third down, and that was your most explosive play of the game, 30-yard pass. But I think he caught it within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. The yak opportunities. All right, we come back. We'll get into the topic for the big fat poll of the day. And we'll also get into your musically themed day of the week. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Local and Rod Babers coming back on the horn.
Back in the Rodcast on a Tuesday morning, and that means it's a top of the charts Tuesday where I'll play songs that were number one this day in history, starting off with some Rolling Stones there for you. Let's get to the big fat poll of the day. Text lines open. 512-447-3776 is your text line number. And you can check this out when we get it posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big Fat Poll of the Day today, looking over in the NFL. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. We talked a little bit about panic buttons. We don't have to hit it. I got one ready to go now, Rod. I did put one together last night.
Why?
Because the first half. Because when it was 17-10, because here was the deal. If we didn't win by 2 scores, that was a panic button game. Even if we won. Even if the Texans win, but they win by a score, that's a panic. because you were
the
playing
Cowboys. Yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
So I had it
Agreed.
ready. I was like, let me just make this because I don't want to make
That's
it at
true.
10:30 at night. So
I agree
I
with
will
that.
make it now. So we
Yeah.
have a panic button ready to go if we need it at some point. But we'll ask you the Koala today. Which disappointment in the NFL has been the most surprising this year? And I'll give you 4 different teams that I feel that were expected to be playoff teams.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is still in the hunt pretty well. The rest are out. But we'll say the Cowboys, supposed to be a playoff team, supposed to be around the rim. They are not. The Jets, Aaron Rodgers coming back. They make the trade. They bring in Hassan Reddick. They bring in Devontae Adams now. They bring in everybody, and they keep losing. They cannot win a game. I know it's the Jets, but this is a team that was supposed to, with Aaron Rodgers, this is the run. We're going to spend all this money. We're going to go all in, and it is not working out at all. The 49ers, 5-5, last in their division right now. This is a team that has been in the Super Bowl year after year. Paid for Ayuk, kept the team together to make the run. And I know there's injuries, but at the same part, this is a 49ers team that was supposed to be in the Super Bowl picture. Right now, not looking like that team. And the Bengals, we know Joe Burrow's back healthy. That one's surprising in the fact that they're healthy and playing this bad. And playing that well, but playing that bad. And losing games. So the Bengals. So we say the Cowboys, the Jets, the 49ers, and the Bengals, who I think are probably all the biggest disappointments of where they were supposed to be to where they are right now.
It's got to be the Bengals for me. Well,
because the Bengals are the most annoying because they shouldn't be as bad as they are.
They shouldn't be that bad, but they can't be good teams.
They cannot be good teams.
And they can't close. Or can't close against good teams, I should say. Because they compete with them. I mean, they play them down to the wire, but they can't close against good teams, as we saw in the last game. Just for some reason, I don't know how the Bengals are a 4-win team, but they only beat bad teams. All their losses
and they've lost to some bad teams too.
Above 500. Yeah.
I mean, they dropped that game to the Patriots the first game of the season. Like, there's games that they wish they could have back when they, hadn't figured it out as much. Yeah, as I said earlier, that Joe Mixon trade looks awful on them now. So I think they thought they'd be able to figure out the running game a little bit more than they were. And, they just said, we got to get rid of some salary somewhere, and that's where we'll take it. And it's not what they were expecting to happen, was for it to just fall apart completely because you can't win the close ones because you can't control the ball as much.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think late in the game too, like the winning game wears teams out. Their body blows. You can wear a team out by the fourth quarter, second half. You pop in some of those runs you didn't pop in the first half. They don't really wear teams out, and they seem to, in the fourth quarter, they seem to be the ones actually that seem to wane quite a bit in the fourth quarter. So we shall see with the Bengals, but I don't know what they do going forward now. What's your inspiration? I know mathematically they probably still got a shot, but there's no way that team's going to make the playoffs. So and now you already got Jamar Chase taking shots at the coaches too.
Yeah.
Things could get ugly in
Cincinnati. You also have to figure out, you got guys that are going to become free agents. T. Higgins, you franchise tagged, and then he's been out for a lot of the season, and now there's no way you keep him, but you could have traded him at one point and gotten some value out of him or done something with him. Now he's just going to walk away in free agency after this year.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. They're the most disappointing to me because I assume they're going to be one of the teams that made it. But how can you say that when that division, hell, man, you could have three playoff teams in that division. Hell, the Browns made the playoffs last year. So, it's the Bengals, considering the way their stars are playing and talent-wise, they may have more talent than just looking at talent, like player for player and ranking their best players on the team. I mean, they have more talent than easily half the league when you're looking at the top players at certain positions with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson. Like I said, those guys are leading they're like leaders at their position statistically in receiving and in sacks, and Joe Burrow's playing at a really high level. The thing about that division is it's like the Steelers they're like the least talented team in that division, but the best overall team. The Ravens got more talent than the Steelers do. So do the Bengals. You can even argue the Browns have more overall talent, just talent if you just started ranking the talent, maybe that's up for debate, but they're definitely comparable in terms of talent. But who's the best team in that division? And it's clear the Steelers are the best team, and it was on display in that game versus the Ravens.
Yeah,
Ravens more talent. You start ranking players, Ravens would have more talent, or at least would have more of the best players or the higher ranked players on that list, and yet the Steelers are a better team.
No, I mean, and that's why when we talk about talent, you throw in the Jets, and they're a 3-win team. They're the same record as the Patriots. If you look at the talent between those two teams, and you go, okay, well, this is an offense with Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, now Aaron Rodgers.
Defense, got good players on defense.
Loaded on defense. They brought in Hassan Reddick, finally got his contract settled. Sauce Gardner's out there, cannot play and win games.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's crazy. It is. I'm with you. There are certain teams around the league like that team is loaded with talent.
San Francisco, loaded with talent. I know they had injuries, but loaded with talent.
Yeah, they got to get out that talent healthy. I guess health is a big part of it with some of these teams too. I mean, that is, but the Steelers are amazing because they're just a great team. And yes, of course, they have some talent, but they're not more talented than the other teams in that division. No way. I think you could make the argument they're the least talented team in the division.
Yeah, especially offensively.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the beauty of football in a nutshell. I mean, that, it's not just all the overall talent, that you have to get them to play as a cohesive unit. And honestly, the Texans kind of struggle with that. Texans are a really talented team. The O-line is really talented. Yeah. Full of first-round picks, and yet they don't play as a cohesive unit all the time. That's the struggle for the coaches, right? Texas offense. This offense is loaded with talent. Now, you may in the backfield, you may argue, well, you don't have as much talent, but the offensive line is loaded with talent, wide receiving talent, Quinn, highly rated quarterback, and yet all the pieces haven't totally come together just yet for Texas. And maybe that's just who they are, inconsistent. But, I mean, that is the struggle for all coaches, right? That you want it's not just about the talent. You want the talent to also perform and execute as a cohesive unit. Right, and have that synchronicity. And so who's the team in the NFL right now that's talented and also a good team? Detroit. Philly's like that. This talent's also a good team. Buffalo.
Yeah.
Talented, that's a good team. Kansas City, of course. Like, though, it's not enough just to have the talent. You also got to be able to have it played together as a team. And I think some coaches do it better than others. There's no doubt Mike Tomlin does a great job of it. D'Amico, that's going to be his struggle. Try to get all this talent to play at a really high level. All right, we come back. We'll get back to the Cowboys and the Texans. We'll talk about the game last night and review that. We'll also get into the Longhorn conversation. We'll start to look at their upcoming opponent. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about the Kentucky Wildcats as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about Dr. Record and his wonderful team, because they do a great job. They did a great job for me. They'll do the same for you. Dr. Record and his team, I originally went there for a routine cleaning and a checkup, and they are so thorough in their checkups. They found that my wisdom teeth were actually growing in sideways, doing all types of damage to my molars, and I was on the verge of a disastrous situation, but there was no need to worry because I was in the most capable hands with Dr. Record and his team. They made sure that I was informed and educated about the process. They made sure that I was comfortable with the procedure, and made sure that I was well taken care of, had got everything done. I was back at work within a couple of days, and thanks to Dr. Record and his team, my dental health health and dental hygiene have never been better. Now, hopefully, when you go visit them, it's not as serious as having all of your wisdom teeth extracted. But if you need something very seriously addressed that's going on with your dental health and dental hygiene, Dr. Rick and his team are the perfect place, folks, for you. Give them a call. You can go check them out online, no matter what it is: general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Rickard and his team are all about. And right now, they do have the technological advances to actually get you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they can complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, don't freak out. Don't get stressed out. Just call Dr. Rickard and his team to learn about this revolutionary alternative to dentures. It's a brand new smile in just one day. It sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. So give them a call today, 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166. You want to use those benefits before the end of the year, before you lose those benefits. And Dr. Rickard and his team, they can show you exactly how to make them work for you and your family. Visit them online at drueckert.com, drueckert.com. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, he takes jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history, and he plays those for us on a Top of the Charts Tuesday. So we appreciate him and all of his effort. We also appreciate him coming up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which will get posted for you. Actually, already is posted for you at the Horn ATX on X. Patrick, what is the topic for the big fat poll of the day?
Big fat poll of the day today. Which disappointment in the NFL has been the most surprising this year? Cowboys, Jets, 49ers, or Bengals? Everybody getting votes early. So all surprising disappointments this season.
Oh, surprised the Cowboys aren't leading this vote early on. 49ers are the biggest disappointment. Yeah, 49ers to me is somewhat understandable just because of the injuries. And I think but they have lost everybody in the division though. So
yeah.
I mean,
And that's what I say, because it's not even, I don't even, like, the way I'm phrasing the question too is it's more, what are you surprised? So it's not even the biggest disappointment, because I think there's ones where you could say the 49ers are not the biggest disappointment, but the fact that they're 5-5 and last in that division is extremely surprising to me.
It is. Yeah, I agree with you. But it ain't all the injuries too. If you watch the 49ers a lot, that's the narrative, but they got some other cracks. They got some other flaws as a team that won't, but the injuries are exacerbating those. And I think when they get everybody back, or at least a larger complement of them, because I think Kittle wasn't available in the Seahawks game. We know Brandon Ayuk is out. When they get more of those guys back, they'll be better, but they'll still probably be a flawed group. And I don't know, I'm with you. I don't know how they crawl out of the basement they're in. They still could make the playoffs, but like I said, now it's a tough road.
Yeah, I mean, they can win their division because they're not that far out of it. It's more along the lines.
But they can't lose in the division again.
Exactly.
They literally lost. They all their mulligans are gone. You have to go. You have to. I don't know how many division games they got left. They can't afford to lose in the division not one more time.
No, and that's the thing, is they have to play.
And that's highly unlikely in that division.
and I believe Brock Purdy is now officially on the injury report.
He's day-to-day, I think.
So he's now beat up as well. So, I mean, they haven't had the best luck with injuries, that's for sure. But yeah, you expect the team with that much talent to be able to pull out a couple more wins. And it just feels like they're not pulling out any of those wins that they normally would have.
No, totally agree with that. And then there is the Bengals, who don't really have. I mean, they haven't had. Everybody's got injuries, but they're to their major stars. Major stars have been largely available, and yet they're like I said, to me, they're the biggest. Like, I don't know, a conundrum. Like, I can't figure out how this team with the top 5 quarterback. That's how Joe Burrow's playing right now, and the leading receiver in the league, and the leading. The player with the most sacks, defender with the most sacks in the league, and a defense that is still a top 10 defense, how they're a 4-win team and can't beat other good teams.
Yeah.
So, and they also play in a division like the 49ers where, man, you get down in that division and it's almost impossible. It's a Sisyphean task to try to get out of the basement of that division. And so I think they're done. Their season might be done. I don't know if the 49ers season done because they don't have as many elite teams. All the teams are there's a lot of parity. They're elite. There are 2 elite teams in that division with the Bengals.
Yeah, and I mean, being the difference between 5-5 and 4-7 is pretty big. So
yes,
it's totally much harder to claw back out of that. So, and I get the Cowboys are getting to get votes too, because the Cowboys, it is surprising that they're so bad. That they went, and I get the Dak injury, but that this is a team they went, all right, they have some problems they didn't fix. There's some things they need to fix, but to go from, okay, well, they're going to be like a 500 team to, oh, they may not win another game this year.
That's possible. I think they're 9th right now in the draft order.
Yeah, that's
good.
Right.
You need to keep on rising up in the draft order. That's
By the way,
now.
I've now started to see the argument that whoever gets high enough in the draft, you need to trade out and wait for next year.
Is that the quarterback class? Next year's quarterback class?
Well, I mean, because this one ain't.
You got Shedeur coming out. You got Cam Ward coming out. You got Quinn, Carson Beck, Nussmeier. I agree. I'm not thrilled about it. Yeah, I'm not thrilled about it. But I would say this quarterback class, the rookie quarterback class this year is actually looking pretty good.
It is.
With Jay Daniels.
There is also
Bo
one.
Nix. But I'm just saying that quarterback class was actually supposed to be a great quarterback class.
No,
I'm agreeing with you that this one is not. So, yeah, mostly you probably want to go. If it is, the scouts all agree that this whatever upcoming class is going to be a great quarterback class. They were saying that about this past one, and they might have been right now looking back at it. Because Jaden Daniels looks like he's going to be really good. Caleb Williams, I mean, that's a separate discussion. Nobody's giving up on Caleb Williams, but didn't look great to start the season. They're all going to hit. But remember how good McCarthy looked before he got hurt. And now Bo Nix is looking pretty good with that group too. Rookie quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Hadn't played.
And there's also the big piece of that too, is there's a lot of people that want to be in the Arch Manning sweepstakes.
Yeah, but
Even though he might stay for another, we know we've heard that, but
yeah,
that is
the reports are he's going to stay 2 years.
that's all reports. But I'm just saying what the NFL sites are now posting about is
I kind of believe he's going to stay. Honestly, at this point, why would he stay as long as he has? Like he's not. They're not following the usual blueprint. The Manning's doing their own thing, and we've heard. And I think the reason I think he's going to stay is because multiple scouts have talked about, and it's kind of a issue in the NFL too, about the lack of quarterback development in the league. They don't develop quarterbacks. They're not interested in developing quarterbacks anymore. That's not what they do. That's why every quarterback in the NFL has got their own quarterback coaches they work with in the offseason. They don't develop quarterbacks. They give up on quarterbacks pretty quickly, as we know. Ask Anthony Richardson, who actually came back, had a pretty nice bounce back game. You know, people are saying Anthony Richardson, they're like, oh, he had a great bounce back game. They never should have benched him. I'm like, don't you think the benching helped with the bounce back game?
Don't you?
No, seriously. I mean, I get the argument that you never should have benched him. I get that argument. I get it.
Yeah.
But we don't think the benching had anything to do with motivating him to play better.
And maybe being able to watch the game on the sideline a little bit, maybe be able to spend time. I think, all of those. I think all of the above. It worked, at least for a game. I think it worked.
At least for a game. Yeah, people are like saying, the CCC, they should have benched. I'm like, I don't think that's proof they never should have benched him. I think it is proof that the benching actually might have worked. It might have been incentive for him to either put in more work in the film room or because he worked harder after being benched. Everybody does.
Yeah. No, I mean, he came out and said multiple times that he was like, I learned that I had to be better at those pieces. I mean, and again, we remember that he tapped out of that game, and I don't think he understood what that meant to people when he tapped out of that game.
He didn't. He didn't.
And so that being put in of like, oh, you don't take this seriously. We don't think that you care about being a starting quarterback in the NFL. And he does. He's just young and didn't realize certain things because he's really young and hadn't been told it before.
Exactly.
So being benched and everything else, you get pushed all those pieces. So you start to work a little bit harder. You get a couple weeks in there of not, throwing 3 interceptions in a game, not getting your, being able to go play in a practice instead of having to go into a game. And once you go back in, things work a little bit better for you.
Yeah, I wonder what role Flacco was playing. Because I would want, if I got a quarterback like that, I need a mentor. I'm sorry, I'm bringing you in as back. I'm like, God, I need you basically be coaching him. We need 2 coaches. You coach him from the player peer-to-peer perspective. I'm going to coach him as a coach. We need constant support and, constant coaching around him. And we just can do it at different levels. And sometimes we can play good cop, bad cop on this thing, but I would acquire a quarterback and essentially give him that responsibility as well. Like, no, man, you're a veteran. We're bringing you in. He needs to learn how to be a professional. He needs to learn what kind of work it takes to kind of put in. I need you to help him with that. And we need to be both applying pressure in that way.
Yes.
So that he understands the assignment. And so I wonder, but some backups don't want to do that. Like, no, I'm not here for that. That's not my
Ryan
Tannehill. Yeah, exactly. Like, no, some quarterbacks like, I'm not here for that. That's not my job.
But if you're bringing a guy in, you can have that conversation before you sign him.
That's kind of my thing. I would be like, no, this is your express purpose. Like, this is actually your top priority, and the backup thing is going to be secondary here because we got different things we're trying to achieve with him in the future. This is a long-term project here. So we're not really interested in the short-term gains, which is getting you ready to play right now so we can win games. No, I think that was the criticism of the move by Indy. It's like, well, so what are you going to gain from putting Joe Flacco in there? Or because are you trying to make a playoff run? Because that's unlikely. Yeah. But if you're trying to do that, I get it. But then they never would state like that's what they were trying to do. And I think they went back because I think ultimately, first of all, Joe Flacco didn't play great. But then Anthony Richardson, it's like the gain is going to be a long-term gain. It's a long-term strategy.
Yes.
And that can't be worried about the short-term rewards or benefits there. But anyway, getting back to it, my point is quarterback development is not a top priority for the league anymore. It just is not.
No.
And the Mannings know that more than anybody.
Yeah.
So the likelihood of him staying here at Texas so Sark can develop him, that I think is pretty high when you consider the Mannings know the NFL's issues now, their crisis with quarterback development. But I could be wrong, just a theory.
No, and I agree. I'm more in the mindset, and I agree with everything you said. I'm in the mindset that I don't think anyone's staying until it gets closer to them actually staying because of what we know in today's league, that it's just people don't stay very often.
They don't.
And so I'm with you. I agree. Everything that's been said, everything that's there. I just, so I'm not disappointed as much. have the mindset that pretty much
true.
everyone's leaving is their first opportunity to leave. And then when they stay, it's awesome. And if when they get closer, if you think, oh no, they're probably going to stay, that's one thing. But if you constantly think everyone's staying for 4 years, you are in college football's rough.
Yeah. Not gonna happen. Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. All right, let's thanks for the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Go check it out for yourself. It is at the Horn ATX on X. We'll talk about the Cowboys and the Texans on the other side here, but first let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Rockets lost a nail-biter to the Bucks last night, snapping a 5-game win streak for Houston. Damian Lillard made the game winner with 3 seconds left, and the Rockets didn't have an answer. Fred VanVleet once again led the way for Houston with 26 points. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Pelicans, and the Spurs face the Thunder as NBA Cup play continues. And in the NFL, the Texans got the 34-10 win over the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Joe Mixon scored 3 touchdowns with over 150 all-purpose yards to pace Houston in the victory. Both teams play divisional games next week, with Dallas taking on the Commanders and Houston playing the Titans. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. I know Cowboys fans are frustrated, and they should be, considering the Cowboys have allowed 37 points per game at home in 2024. That would be the most points per game allowed by at home by any team in a season in NFL history. The 1960 Cowboys currently hold the record, which is 36.5 points per game allowed at home. The Cowboys would blow that out of the water because right now they're allowing 37.4 points per game at home, and they've trailed by at least 20 points in 6 straight home games. That is also the longest such streak in NFL history. And Jerry's, speaking of home issues and home environment issues, the stadium literally had panels that were ajar and in danger of falling onto the field that they had to address prior to the game, which is just, I mean, you can't beat that kind of irony. That Jerry's baby is literally falling apart.
The sky is falling. Well, because they haven't opened that roof in apparently 2 years. And they were trying to open it for Monday Night Football. They thought this will be a thing. You know, as much as everybody's giving us grief about the windows in the stadium, we'll show them that we can even open the roof and it'll be great. And they opened the roof and stuff started falling. And so they had to close the roof again. So they closed the roof. And then very much, and I understand the reasoning of why they had to do it. But then when they said, hey, you can't play a football game if there's still a piece of debris up in the rafters, we can see it in the rafters. So someone had to go up there and they said, well, can you remove it? And they were like, well, not really safely. So we'll just bolt it down. And that felt like the most Mike McCarthy still our coach thing could possibly be done. Hey, can you fix this problem? Not right now. So bolt it in. I'm just going to stand by. No, it's not Mike McCarthy's fault.
Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah. No, I'm with you. That is, like I said, the irony of it was, I'm sure, not lost on people watching that okay, the Cowboys, this thing is not going well for them. And the season ultimately for the Cowboys, I think at this point, they're not tanking, I don't think purposefully, but that is the goal of the season now. Just to get better draft position going for you. And I'll say this for the Cowboys. I don't know who the coach is going to be going forward. We know the GM is going to be, unfortunately. It's going to be Jerry Jones. So the hope is that Jerry Jones just hires the right coach. And from there, the right coach in this situation, all right, because it's got to be the right coach that's compatible with Jerry as the GM, guys. That's the key here. Because ultimately, you can look at models like Detroit, and you can look at Houston. You literally can look at Houston, your own in-state rival, and look at Houston and go, well, hell, look what they did. It didn't take them long. They hired the right GM, hired the right coach, drafted the right quarterback, and you already got your QB, so you're good. You already got that part of the formula. You got to get the Holy Trinity right. And Jerry ain't going anywhere as a GM. That is what it is. And you got Dak as the head coach. That is what it is. So you got to find the other piece of that Holy Trinity that can activate both of those other pieces, right? Both those other points on the triangle. You got to be able to activate Jerry and be compatible with Jerry, but also somebody that can maximize Dak's ability. That's the coach you're looking for. I don't know who that is. that's got to be a special person. Now, could it be Deion Sanders? At this point, maybe. Crazier things have happened. I don't know if it's Deion Sanders. That would be right on brand with the Cowboys. Could he work with Jerry? Yeah, he could. Jerry likes Deion. Jerry respects Deion. Jerry would listen to Deion. He would. I know he would. I know he would. Should he listen to Deion? Probably, but I guarantee he would. We all know that. He loves him, Deion.
He does. I do think there's one issue with this. It's philosophically, Jerry Jones likes his guys. And Deion Sanders, if you do not perform, there is the door.
But just that Jerry might change for Deion.
Because
it's Deion. Because Deion and Jerry, they're like souls. We know this. Promotion, marketing, branding. I mean, they are. They're obviously very different. Their backgrounds and where they come from, but they have the same mindset when it comes to promotion and marketing, and it's baked into who they are. It's naturally baked in. Jerry admires that. Jerry likes that. So I think he would listen to Deion. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying this is the way they should go. I'm just telling you gotta have it's got to be a unique person and coach here. You can't just go, we're gonna hire the best coach available. I don't know if that works because they got to work with Jerry. And the best coaches avoid the Cowboys ever since Bill Parcells pretty much cursed the Cowboys and said, if you're a real ball coach, don't go there because they're not about ball. They're not about ball. Yeah. They're about a lot of other things with the Cowboys, but ball is down the list. Football is like third or fourth down the list. A lot of other things. But you know what? It works for Jerry. And you got to get somebody, I think, that also can maximize your biggest investment and asset right now, which is Dak Prescott. So either you're going to bring in an offensive-minded guy that can do that, or you got to make sure your defensive head coach that you bring in, that he makes a damn good hire at OC so that you can have a Dak-friendly offense, whatever it is. So there's a lot of elements here because we know Mike McCarthy is pretty much done. A lot of elements here at work. Like I said, the only Deion came up because I've seen people talking about it and saw it, and I'm just saying it wouldn't be crazy just because I don't know if Deion's going to work or not, but I do know one element. He would be compatible, at least being able to communicate with Jerry Jones and influence Jerry Jones. And that's part of it. Because as a coach, you got to have that ability going into it with the Cowboys. If you don't, then you're going to be a puppet for Jerry. And you don't just want a puppet for Jerry. If you just get a puppet for Jerry, you're going to end up reliving and going through this same cycle over and over again.
And that's the
kind of got to break it.
And that's the other name.
Parcells was able to break it. He broke it.
Yeah, and that's
Mike McCarthy kind of broke it a little bit.
He just never fought for players.
He can't because he's a puppet kind of.
Yeah, and so I mean that's like if you look at the names that you hear at least just available, you know, of guys who have any experience, because otherwise you're bringing in an assistant and an assistant's coming in, and I don't know if an assistant like an offensive coordinator.
Yeah,
I don't know if they have the clout to pull that off. So you look at names like Mike Vrabel. And you go, okay, but Vrabel, that's a DC, and he's not a bad coach, but is Jerry going to listen to him?
And you better make the right OC hire, too.
Yeah, and you got to hire an OC, so it's difficult. Bill Belichick, same thing. Can that partnership actually coexist?
He would influence Jerry. Jerry would listen to Bill Belichick.
But we know what happened with Parcells, and we know Parcells and Belichick know each other.
Yeah, he would definitely call Bill.
And so
Bill would call Bill before that.
Yes, so I don't know if that works out either. You know, then of course people are now worried about the rumor because Jerry Jones thinks Jason Witten's going to be a great coach one day, and he's compared him to Dan Campbell, and so
okay, all right.
So are you just bringing in Jason Witten now to be your guy because you think the fans will like it, but you know it's another guy that I don't really care. It'll just be fun for me to have Jason Witten back in the building.
Nobody thought that Dan Campbell hire was going to be as successful as it was, but he was the right guy for what Detroit needed. I mean, Detroit, that's another story that should give Cowboys fans hope, but it only gives you hope if you got the right guy at GM, because they hired Brad Holmes first, which a lot of people didn't think Brad Holmes, that was a good hire. at GM, and a lot of people didn't think the Dan Campbell hire was a good hire. Both of those hires were highly criticized. I remember the bite kneecaps thing for Dan Campbell, and then ultimately, now you look at it, Brad Holmes, 22% of his draft picks have become Pro Bowlers since he became GM. Dude knows what the hell he's doing. If you look at it, look at Brad Holmes' track record right now in terms of draft, his draft resume, it's as impressive as any GM in the last 3-4 years in the NFL. And then, of course, the hiring the right coach who made the right decision to up. He's the one that decided Ben Johnson should be promoted. Remember, they had I forget the old time.
Was it Glenn?
Old time. It is Anthony Lynn. Thank you very much. It was Anthony Lynn. He was the OC, and then Dan Campbell was like, no, man. Young kid, Ben Johnson, let's do that. So all the right decisions were made, but there was a chain of command that was established in a hierarchy by hiring the right guy. And so I think that's why with Jerry, I'm not saying you can't do it with Jerry. Some people say you can't do it with Jerry, and it's been done before with Jerry. But he hired a football coach. He hired a guy that was about ball. And so as long as you got to find that right mix, I think, for Jerry, because Jerry ain't going nowhere, guys. Jerry's going to be your GM. Dak's your quarterback. So if you're trying to find the other piece of the Holy Trinity, you got to find the right coach, and the right coach for Dak, and the right coach for also that can work with Jerry. That's the conundrum. It really is for the guy, because right now the Cowboys, there's a great line. There's the show Succession. I don't know if you watch it, Pat. It's a great show. I won't bore you breaking it down too much, but essentially it's the guy, he owns this huge business, like this multinational, international corporation that he owns, and he's trying to pass it on to his kids. He's got like 3 kids, and they're all kind of fighting for, power, and everybody wants to own the company, right? So they end up kind of going at it, and he's trying to figure out which one of his kids are worthy of being the new CEO and owner of the company and who he should leave it to. And then there's a line in, I think it was like season 4, where he's talking to all the kids. He's just telling them straight up how he feels about them. And he ends up not wanting to leave the company to any of them, basically, because he just doesn't trust them in the end. And this line has stood out and been now kind of a pop culture. It's become kind of a pop culture meme. But this is how I feel about the Dallas Cowboys. They're not a serious organization. They're not a serious football organization. And that's basically what he has to tell his children as to why I can't leave you my legacy and my business and what I've worked my entire life for, is because you guys are not serious people.
You are not serious figures. I love you, but you are not serious people.
I feel like that about the Dallas Cowboys. I love the Dallas Cowboys. We follow the Dallas Cowboys, cover the Dallas Cowboys. They are not a serious football organization. Whether you're talking about the curtains, or whether you're talking about, Zeke and the way they handle that, or whether you're talking about how how Mike McCarthy has been kind of emasculated by Jerry Jones as a lame duck coach. No matter what the situation, the sensational, the salacious headlines, whatever aspect you're looking at. Hell, even the recent trade for Jonathan Mingo, which I still don't really understand. He did play last night, but didn't get a target or anything. They're just not a serious football organization yet, and they need a coach that can make them a serious football organization again. Because right now they're not. They're just not. They're far from it. And I don't know if I trust Jerry Jones to make the right hire here. Because it takes some humility to hire the right guy that potentially could butt heads with you again. And he hasn't done that since Bill Parcells. He just hires people that aren't going to have any, dissenting opinion or opposing opinion. And that's also unhealthy for an organization too. That's not healthy for the chain of command. It's not healthy. So I don't know who they're going to hire. That's, to me, is one. I think that might be the question of the offseason. Who are the Cowboys hire? Do they hire another puppet? Then we know, all right, same old, same old. Oh, will Jerry Jones decide to hire a real football coach? If he does, you can change things, guys. It's not. We've seen the Detroit freaking Lions, guys. For the first time in their history, the Detroit Lions are a Super Bowl favorite. They have the best odds right now to win the Super Bowl. It's never happened in the history of the franchise. I played for the Detroit Lions, so I keep up with Detroit Lions news. Right? For the first time in history, they are the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. Never happened. It's never happened before. They have the second longest title drought in the NFL. It's like 66 years or something like that. And now people are picking them to win the Super Bowl potentially. And honestly, they're the juggernaut in the NFC. They got two 50-point burgers this year. Nobody liked the GM hire. Nobody liked the head coach hire. Nobody even really liked Jared Goff when he got there. Now they're on the verge, and I think we all agree. I don't see anybody in NFC really beating them on the verge of going to a Super Bowl. If you make the right hires, I mean, and make the right moves, it won't take you that long to shift the really trajectory of the Dallas Cowboys. I know it looks grim right now, but I remember when the Texans looked grim too, and it took 2 years. The right decisions, though. You got to make the right moves, and you got to make like 3 good moves in a row. And you already got Dak in place, so you got the quarterback, and that's usually the toughest part of it all. Toughest part of filling out the Holy Trinity. So Mike McCarthy's gone because they got to start a new 5-year window. Remember the 5-year rule? You got 5 years to win it with a head coach and a quarterback. No quarterback and a head coach have won their first Super Bowl outside of that 5-year window. So if they don't win it within 5 years, they're not going to win it. And the Cowboys hit it. And what happened as soon as they hit it? They started to deteriorate because that's the way the NFL is built. The NFL is built on 5-year windows. The CBA is built like that. The salary cap is built like that. Once you pay all your guys and once you start to have to address those salary cap issues, when you hit on those couple of draft classes, it starts to fall apart for you. And it does. You got to reset the 5-year window. Buffalo may be the team to try to break it this year, to try to end that streak, because they're outside the 5-year window. Sean McDermott and Josh Allen. The Ravens are. Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh outside of it.
Yep.
But the Ravens look flawed, don't they? They can't figure out defense. They look like a team that's going to win it all. I don't know. You think Buffalo or Baltimore looks like a team more that can win it all? I don't know. Like I can't figure out because Buffalo saying they have less of a glaring deficiency. Their flaw is not as anything glaring as the flaw that the Ravens have, which is they're like the worst pass defense in the NFL. All right, we come back. We'll get into Rod's rant on the other side. Rod's rant. We'll talk a little Texas football, actually. Sark was asked about a concept that could help him try to solve the 3 high that Arkansas threw out there versus Texas. We'll address it. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian on the other side, and also talk some Texas football. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. I was listening to Sark's presser from yesterday's media availability, and I'm glad someone asked about it. I believe my man CJ Vogel asked him about this. I have been wondering why we have not seen the Big 12, Big 11 package, which is their extra 6-0 line package. We haven't seen it at all this season. Saw it in 2023, saw it in 2022. And Sark hasn't really deployed it at all. I thought you would see it versus Oklahoma, maybe, would use it versus them a little bit. Did not see it in that matchup. I thought he's waiting maybe for a big game to break it out, maybe for Georgia, something like that. Still had not seen it. And even against Arkansas, where they used the 3-high defense, as Sark mentioned, they went to it exclusively. At one point, maybe last season or 2 seasons ago, when Texas started using the 6-0 line package, my theory was that it was a great solution, or one of his solutions, to try to help solve the 3-high defense. And he used it successfully in the Big 12 versus teams who use the 3-high defense, which Arkansas broke out versus Texas. And Texas hadn't really seen it this year. Definitely not at the rate that Arkansas used it. They hadn't seen it that much this season, even though in the Big 12, you saw it a lot. Matter of fact, he saw it, I believe, on 7 of the 12 teams they played during the regular season, used it, either minored in it or majored in it in some way, form, or fashion. So I thought, okay, maybe he uses it as a way to counter the 3-high because it works really well. That was not the case versus Arkansas either. So I don't know if you're going to see it at all this year, period. Here's Sark when he was asked by, I believe it was CJ Vogel, about playing 12 personnel, which is 1 back, 2 tight ends, Juan Davis and Gunnar Helm, who's having a great season, playing that instead of sprinkling in some of the 6th offensive linemen.
Yeah, I think Gunnar has changed a little bit of that for us. You know, we feel very comfortable with Gunnar being in there as a C area blocker, where in the past we felt like, you know, we needed an extra offensive lineman to do that stuff. Like I said, every game takes on a life of its own, and we try to manipulate defenses the way that we can. And you know, Arkansas was going to play a 3 safety defense, so it was like, well, if I can put an extra blocker out there to try to cover people up, why not try to do that? But I think to go, you know, I'm answering 2 questions at one time, but to not have the extra O lineman and have Gunnar and Juan out there together, that presents other issues for the defense that they have to deal with, that if it was an extra lineman, they wouldn't have to. And Gunnar allows us to do that because he's a factor in the run game.
Okay. So it must be that Gunnar Helm has improved as a blocker, because last year, why not just use JT and Gunnar like you're using Juan and Gunnar this year? So I'm assuming and that we can all agree with that, just the eye test, because Gunnar looks way better than Gunnar looked last year as a player. So I would assume that, and so I get that, you know, hey, I want a lineman, I want a tight end out there who is actually a threat in the passing game, and the 6th offensive lineman does not present that. So maybe making life easier on the defense. I do understand that. But the Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, Serena Williams size, Cardi B size, Megan Thee Stallion size, but that I would throw out there is, and maybe it was a Big 12 thing. Maybe it's about the Big 12 ecosystem, and the SEC ecosystem is different because they got bigger bodies. That could very well be the case. But by my tracking, your 6th offensive line package, your Big 11, Big 12 package worked really good versus the 3-high teams. That's kind of what I would throw out there. Now, it could just be because you had better personnel last year, maybe because you had, you know, access to better running backs last year with Jay Brooks and CJ Baxter. That could be the reason, right? And that could be it. But man, when I look at the metrics, when you utilize the Big 11, Big 12 package, extra offensive lineman against 3 highs, you're over 70% completion percentage. You're damn near at 12 yards per attempt throwing the football. You're over 5 yards per rush overall. Like I said, that could just be personnel. But to me, that's kind of what I thought. I thought, okay, maybe that's his change of pace. That's his way to counter and adjust to the 3-high. and he's saying it's not. I think it helps, or at least it's more successful or effective versus three high defenses because, as I said before, it's extreme. Any extreme personnel groupings, extreme formations will force the three high out of its disguise, out of its shell, out of its deception, and out of its camouflage. And then once it's out of its disguise, it just looks like every other defense you've seen. Like, oh, that looks like cover two. It looks like they're in cover four. It looks like they're going to be in man free, whatever it may be. And the three high just allows you to really weaponize disguise and weaponize camouflage because it's harder for quarterbacks to be able to decipher it pre-snap. It really is a lot of moving pieces. And so I think to force the defense to have to respect your power personnel you put out there, 6 offensive linemen, you'll see guys start to drift toward their run fits and get to their run fits and get to their alignment and assignment right away. That's when extreme personnel groupings and formations will do. And I think that's why the 6 line package, in my opinion, just my theory, I think that's why it worked a little bit better. But like I said, maybe that's a Big 12 thing. Sark maybe he knows better than me. Because I was just looking at certain concepts versus the three high. And when I looked at it and looked at the data, at least my notes, it did say that the 6 offensive line package works really well. So my hope would be have it ready for Kentucky because Kentucky is going to use the three high. Guarantee you. They'd be fools not to. That'd be a dang coaching mistake if they didn't break it out versus Texas because I've told you guys all of the stats, that offensive stats for Sark, were you talking about passing stats or rushing stats, or overall scoring, they're almost all adversely affected versus a three high defense as opposed to more traditional single high and 2 high looks. And I looked at another thing too, and this is something that he could have done in the game that I didn't see as well with the 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. He would throw out a quads package last season where it would be out of 12 personnel, sometimes out of 11 personnel, mostly out of 12, where he would basically cover up one of his eligible receivers, essentially turning them into an extra blocker. On like I said, on one side or the other, and an overload one side of the formation. But still, going back to my theory, it's an extreme formation. So once again, forcing the three high out of its shell disguise and having to address the quads, the 4 receivers on one side of formation. There's no damn way a defense can stay balanced when you do that. I have to get out of my shell. I have to drift toward, because what if you just run the freaking ball over there? I got to get toward my responsibility. And they'll say, okay, well, look at the way the safety's drifting. Oh, I got you. Look at them on the backside. Looks like they're obviously going to be in a single high look here, but they're gonna rotate to it from a 3 high. And you give the quarterback better indicators. And I think it actually works deception wise. I think it's effective at generating yards. In your quads, you were over 6 yards per rush when you went to that look last year. This was the Big 12, different ecosystem, different bodies. And you're over 70% completion percentage. Damn near 9 yards per attempt. So there's some concepts that I think Sark could have recycled from his Big 12 days that I believe would have worked versus Arkansas in that 3 high look. I went back and looked at the empty. I will admit empty not as successful. It's a lot more hit and miss. I mean, you got some big plays out of empty versus 3 high versus those 3 high teams, but not a ton. Not consistent enough for me to say this will translate. I do believe when I looked at pony package versus 3 high teams last season, pony package is your most effective, most explosive, and your most efficient personnel grouping, period, and has been since Sark stepped on the 40 acres. But it still tracked and was sticky versus teams that played or majored or minored in 3 high coverages or 3 high presentations. You were over 6 yards per rush. You're over 12 yards per attempt. Your completion percentage wasn't that high, but you're below 60% completion percentage. But I like the explosivity of the package versus versus three high, because it's once again a little bit extreme. It's more it's a power personnel grouping, more running backs on the field. You can get a defense to react to that. So I think there are certain concepts. I would go with more pony. I would go with some of those quad looks. I would go with also 6-0 line package. I would go with the Big 11, Big 12 package. When Kentucky breaks out the three high, which I guarantee they will. All right, we come back. We'll get into a little what the facts, what the stats right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some factoids, what the facts, what the stats, right here on the Rodcast. All right, how about this factoid? First of all, Tom Herman was relieved of his duties as the FAU head coach. So I don't know what Tom Herman's going to do. I bet a lot of people want to hire Tom Herman as a coordinator. I don't know if that's what he wants to do, but I bet a lot of teams will be willing to hire him as a coordinator. But as a head coach, I think Tom Herman stays as a head coach might be done. Unless he wants to drop down to like a much lower level, which I'm not sure Tom Herman wants to do that. But anyway, getting back to it, how about this stat? So if you're talking about Tom Herman's FAU Owls, because Owls was their mascot. So as of yesterday, there are 4 teams in FBS called the Owls, and all 4 of them have fired their head coach this coaching carousel.
Wow.
Rice, Temple, Kennesaw State, and FAU. Isn't that crazy? There are only 4 teams in FBS called the Owls, and all 4 of them have fired their head coaches this coaching carousel cycle.
I feel like there's a joke in there somewhere about
It
who
definitely
is your coach.
but
I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. Even mentioning that's pretty good. I like that. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? That is wild. Yeah. So good luck with Tom. And Texas has a couple of connections with these Owls here. Because you got Tom Herman connection there. Stan Drayton was at Temple. Stan Drayton was the head coach at Temple. So two of these are former coaches at Texas. Which is that's pretty wild. All right. Anyway, there you go. So what the facts? What the stats? How about this one? This has nothing to do with sports, but I saw it and it's crazy. Well, actually, I'll just give you the sports related one. Then I'll end with the pop culture one, or at least the one that's non-sports related. Texas has 2 players in the top 10 graded DBs in all of FBS. Jahdae Barron, of course, is one. Anybody? You have a guess who the other top 10 graded DB is in the FBS in the Texas secondary?
I mean,
you can say it.
Is it so? It's not Muhammad?
No, it's Taft Daddy.
Oh, nice.
It's Michael Taft.
The Manny Muhammad one always makes me, because it's just like you just never see him during a game. You see him like twice a game,
and he's always making a good play.
But it's because they just don't throw his way. Like
they don't.
Not seeing a DB usually means they're doing their job, and so I feel like that's the thing where I go, hey, I know he's not ranked because they just don't throw at him.
They don't throw at the dude. No, I'm with you. He is, like I said, Arkansas decided to throw at Jahdae Barron more than Malik Muhammad. And you're like, he came into the game as like considered the best corner in college football, or one of the top 3, and you're throwing at him instead of throwing at Manny. Like, that's what their film is telling them.
Yeah.
It's like, we got a better chance against this dude. And it's like, really? I know.
It's crazy. But Michael Taft, that's good for him. I mean, he's having a heck of a season, and just Johnny on the spot so many times.
Yeah, I mean, how often can you go from walk on at Texas to starting at Texas? That's happened. I mean, I think Dylan Haynes did it. It's rare, but it's happened.
Yeah.
But the way Taft Daddy is playing, I mean, he's playing like one of the best safeties in the country. I mean, like I said, he could end up winning. I think it's what's called the Burlsworth Trophy that goes to the best walk-on, or at least former walk-on. He's not a walk-on, but former walk-on in the country. He may be in the running for that award. I have not looked at who the finalists are.
No, but he's that guy that when you say Johnny on the spot, you go, that's kind of a, you just go like, oh, he's just there. But when you do it so consistently throughout an entire season, that's preparation. That's skill. That's knowledge. That's football IQ.
Yep, he's always in the right place because his preparation takes him to the football. The Ravens have allowed only 1 fewer explosive play this season than they did all of last season. They've already given up 13 more explosive pass plays than they did all of last season. We got like 7 games left. I don't know how that Ravens defense got that bad, but it got really bad over an offseason. After converting 39% of their red zone possessions for TDs in the first 3 weeks, the Detroit Lions have converted 82% of their red zone possessions into touchdowns since then. 82%, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's how you score a 50 burger. That's how it happens. Kansas City, how about this stat? 5.9% of Kansas City's rushing plays have gained 10 or more yards, the lowest rate in the league. That's right, folks. The Dallas Cowboys have a more explosive run game than the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City is one of 2 teams, the Cowboys being the other, that does not have a run of 20 or more yards by a running back.
But the difference is Kansas City still runs the ball a lot.
That's true. They did run the rock.
I mean, because that was the deal. Is you'll see Kareem Hunt get a 100-yard gain, averaging like 3 yards a carry.
Mm-hmm.
They just keep handing him the ball.
You're right. They run the rock. I'm with you on that. How about this one? Matthew Golden, the Golden Child. He is now tied for the SEC lead in receiving touchdowns with 8 on the season. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean, it's so strange. You don't realize how productive he is, but he's the go-to red zone weapon.
Yeah, I mean, 2 catches last week, both touchdowns.
That's legit right there. All right, there you go. What the fact? Oh, how about this factoid? This is a good one to end on. Non-football, kind of football related. Congratulations to Vernon Broughton. He and his wife Camille are expecting a baby. Boom. There you go.
There you go.
Remember Vernon Browning
Congrats.
got married. Remember missed the spring game
Oh yeah,
because of the wedding. So apparently they're expecting, and I believe Kelvin Banks is also expecting. All right, him and his significant other, I believe that they announced it earlier too. So got some grown men on this damn team.
Some grown men. About to be.
They playing like it though, playing like some grown men too. There you go. All right, so there you go. Nice little factoid to leave it on there. So congratulations to Vernon Bright. Congrats to all those guys. All right, we'll come back. We'll get into some Texans and Cowboys conversation, but also I want to talk about a little bit about this quarterback class that I think has been stellar so far. This rookie quarterback class. We'll get into that. We'll also dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets from around the league. More Texas, Kentucky discussion. We'll also continue to review what the Longhorns did in their win over Arkansas, but looking ahead as well. And we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him and all of his efforts. He also comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is posted as well at the Horn ATX. Patrick, let the folks know what the topic is for the big fat poll of the day.
Your big fat poll of the day today: which disappointment in the NFL has been the most surprising this year? We gave you the Cowboys, Jets, 49ers, and Bengals. Right now, the Cowboys and 49ers are tied at 38 apiece. Then we got the Bengals at 14% and 10% for the Jets.
Yeah, because I think the way you phrased the question, which disappointment in the NFL has been the most surprising this year? Yeah, like I said, the Bengals to me is a big surprise, though. Like the surprising thing is like they got guys that are playing so well,
Yeah,
and to still be this bad. Like that to me is the most surprise. So the way you phrased it, I still think it's the Bengals, even though obviously the vote says something different here. Like, let me give you a stat about the Bengals. We just did what the stats. I'll give you another about the Bengals. Through the first 11 games, the Bengals, Joe Burrow has 3,028 passing yards, 27 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, right? Here are the list of players to achieve 3,000 passing yards, at least 27 touchdowns, and 5 or fewer interceptions through the first 11 games. Tom Brady, he's did it twice, 2007 and 2015. Aaron Rodgers, he did it twice, 2011, 2020. Patrick Mahomes did it in 2020. Drew Brees did it in 2018. Here are the records of those quarterbacks. Tom Brady was 16-0 at this point. He was 16-0 and 13-3 those years. Aaron Rodgers 15-1, 13-3 those years. Patrick Mahomes was 14-2 in that year, and Drew Brees was 13-3. The Bengals are 4-7. Usually, when your quarterback plays that good this early, it's a no-brainer. You're on your way to winning double-digit games. And you have a good receiver, obviously. So the Jamar Chase thing makes sense. He's leading the NFL receiving, but it's not. Your defense is good too. It's not like your defense is bad. You got the leading sacker in the NFL on that defense. To me, that's the most surprising because I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. Doesn't make sense, man. It doesn't make any sense.
They're surprised.
What the hell?
Yeah, I don't. And it's the run game's much worse than it was last year. And they need that a little bit. But, yeah, they had injuries because they'll be good, and then Joe Burrow will get hurt, and then their season kind of go off the rail. But he's been playing really well. Jamar Chase is playing really well. They're scoring points. The defense isn't terrible. I mean, it's not great, but they just can't hold the ball for long enough, it feels like. It feels like they're too explosive at points, maybe.
Yeah, no, you might be right. They scored too quickly. Yeah, no, I don't know what it is. Like it's worth analyzing at this point. Like what is going on with the Bengals? But I see here that obviously the Cowboys are getting more votes, and I get that, but that's mine. The Bengals are mine personally. Like I don't know how that team is not winning more games. The Jets, I think we all saw the Jets coming. I think we all saw this train wreck happening, and we all knew Aaron Rodgers was on a quest to prove that he could transform a franchise. He saw Brady do it. You know what I mean? He's like, honestly, Matt Stafford did it to a certain extent. When he came down and was able to run right away. But I think less so because I think the Rams were closer. The Rams had already gotten to a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. So people were like, they were on the verge. They just needed him to put them over the top. But when Tom Brady went to the Bucs, he transformed the franchise. And I think Aaron Rodgers thought he had that kind of power and that type of presence, and it is going horribly wrong.
Yeah,
it's going horribly wrong.
No,
but you know what? I think Russell Wilson thought that too. I think you can think. Sometimes I think you get too intoxicated with your own, ego, and you're like, no, I was the reason we were doing it. And I think Russell Wilson. That's what he learned in Denver. Now, it didn't help the leadership there and them having. Oh, speaking of the Aaron Rodgers connection, Nathaniel Hackett as his head coach, who was just a bad head coach, and then bringing Sean Payton in.
I mean,
that didn't help.
What's the common thread between these two teams? Nathaniel Hackett and Nathaniel Hackett?
Yep. Ding, 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 ding. All right. Guy given way too much responsibility. Probably didn't deserve it. But, yeah, so ultimately, when you start looking at it, I think if you go look at the Jets, I don't know. I kind of saw that coming because I think quarterbacks at times, like I said, it's rare. What Tom Brady is the exception and not the rule to be able to come in and totally transform a franchise in that manner, to have that kind of presence. You know, Joe Montana proved he had some of that. Remember, he went to Kansas City, and Kansas City all of a sudden just went on a run and with old men, and then hell, they beat the Oilers. I remember that. Beat the Lovey Blue Oilers. We were damn good that year. Supposed to go to the Super Bowl that year. Nope. Joe Montana showed up for Kansas City of all franchises. And I think Aaron Rodgers thought he had some of that. But Aaron Rodgers, I think, is an all-time great player. But maybe a little too selfish to have that kind of impact on a franchise. And I think for Russell Wilson learned too that he didn't have either the communication skills or the relatability in a locker room to be that guy that can transform a franchise. It ain't easy, man. I think it is rare. That's why it's rare, because it's almost an impossible thing to do, to change it from every level. But Tom Brady had a kind of impact, and like I said, I think Aaron Rodgers expected he was going to have that kind of impact, and he has just not. He's picking his own players and all that stuff. It ain't working.
And then Robert Saleh, they fire him, and it doesn't do anything. There was no adjustments where when Robert Saleh's gone, now we're on the path, and no, they've been worse.
Didn't move the needle really at all.
I think it worse.
Actually, move the needle down. So yeah, I think we saw that one coming. The one I just didn't see coming was the Bengals, and didn't see it happening in this manner. But yeah, the Cowboys are at 39% because Cowboys, they weren't supposed to be this bad. When Dak got hurt, we all knew that they were going to spiral. With Dak, they had a shot at still, making the playoffs. They were not going to, in my opinion, be a Super Bowl contender though this season, even if Dak was healthy. They weren't going to be a Super Bowl contender. I think we all saw that coming too with the Cowboys. So yeah, if that's the most surprising disappointment, this offseason is going to be really interesting for the Cowboys. I cannot wait to see who Jerry Jones picks as his next head coach. It's going to tell you a lot about how desperate Jerry Jones is to win a championship.
Yeah.
It's going to say a lot because he's God bless him, as we all are. All right. So act accordingly. He's in his twilight years, and, he's staring Father Time in the face, and he wants to win a championship, I'm sure, before he's got to call it quits. And that means there's got to be some sense of urgency with it, some sense. But maybe not, because maybe Jerry Jones never cared about that. If he doesn't care about it now, then he never cared about it, really. You know what I mean? Like, there were other things that he cared about. But at one point, y'all know this, Jerry Jones wanted to win a championship more than he wanted to do anything else. And he did. And I don't know if he's made decisions with that as his top priority since he won those titles. And that is, I think, the concern for Cowboys fans. All right, we'll talk about that a little bit, but though, check out the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We'll also talk some Longhorn football. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about the upcoming opponent, the Kentucky Wildcats. He says it's the biggest game of the year, and he's right, because every game now is the biggest game of the year. You just got to win, baby. Just like late great Al Davis would say, just win, baby. You just got to do that. So we'll come back next segment and go behind the Burn curtain and talk some Texas football. But let's talk Cowboys Texans on the other side. Texans with the big win on Monday Night Football. First Monday Night Football win since 2018 for the Texans. So we'll discuss that coming up. But first, let's do the Horn headlines. Let's get educated. Let's get updated. And let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headline is brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Rockets lost a nail-biter 101-100 to the Bucks last night, snapping a 5-game win streak for Houston. Damian Lillard made the game winner with 3 seconds left, and the Rockets didn't have an answer. Fred VanVleet once again led the way for Houston with 26 points. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Pelicans, and the Spurs face the Thunder as the NBA Cup play continues. And in the NFL, the Texans got the 34-10 win over the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Joe Mixon scored 3 touchdowns with over 150 all-purpose yards to pace Houston in the victory. Both teams play divisional games this week, with Dallas taking on the Commanders and Houston playing the Titans. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, let's get to some Texans Cowboys conversation here. I think for Cowboys fans, when you watch the game, of course you have low expectations. You have to when your starting quarterback goes down. But then when, oh yeah, when you actually see your team not even meet those very low expectations you have for your team, that's got to be upsetting. And I think for Cowboys fans, that is something they're dealing with. That there are times where you lower your expectations and still your team can't even meet the low expectations. I think that's happening for Mike McCarthy and some of his coaching decisions here down the stretch with Dak out for the Cowboys. Yes, of course, the Cowboys are gonna, they're a bad team, and without your starting quarterback, you expect to lose. But you also don't expect your head coach to, be working against you in certain situations. And I think for the Cowboys, man, Mike McCarthy is being exposed in certain situations without Dak. And I understand him trying to, infuse some desperation and some urgency into the Cowboys and trying to catch teams by surprise, give them a strategic advantage. But man, the fake punt early on in the game, didn't like that in the first quarter. For the execution was poor, but I didn't like the decision to even call the fake punt, and that led to the first touchdown of the game for the Texans. And that's a close game at halftime. And you gave them easy field position to get a touchdown when the Texans offense wasn't totally clicking in sync. They were able to move the football. Joe Mixon, who we'll talk about, was spectacular. But you gave them an easy field position there and gave them points. You also took points off the board for the Cowboys when they've been tough for them to score points. Brandon Aubrey had that 64-yard field goal. There was a penalty on the play, and Cowboys were within 7 points. However, Mike McCarthy took the penalty and took the points off the board, then decided to go for a fourth down later on, which they did not convert and ended up getting 0 points out of that. I mean, that's 7 points, 3 points right there. I mean, early on in the game, especially considering all the the deficiencies that the Cowboys are dealing with, man, you can't afford your margin for error is really, really thin. You can't afford to give up points, and you can't afford to take points off the board. So to me, and I'll say, I think the most glaring coaching miscalculation had to be Cooper Rush, who played better than I thought, but threw it 55 times. No. That's not a recipe for success for any quarterback, by the way. I don't give a damn how good they are. Should not be throwing the ball 55 times in a game. Got to have a little more strategy. You got to have more discipline, have some more balance than have your quarterback throwing it 55 times. That's absurd. So I think for Mike McCarthy, I don't expect Mike McCarthy to give them enough of a strategic advantage or tactical advantage for them to win the game. No. But man, with the way the Texans were playing, the way the game was going, that game could have been even closer if not for some of the Mike McCarthy miscues. That's why Mike McCarthy is not going to be extended and is on his last leg as coach of the Cowboys.
And I mean, as you can tell, that's you can look at both teams and see that there's issues with the coaching and connecting to the team. I think for the Cowboys, it's just everyone knows that it's over and that the coach is gone and no one knows who's going to stay and who's going to go. And so you saw it getting chippy a lot with Cowboys players because when someone's trash talking you and you really don't have a retort, it can get chippy a lot more. And
they're playing hard though.
And they were playing hard. But it was just there's no retort when the team's. You're like, yeah, our team sucks. What do you want me to say?
What you want me to say?
Like, I hate our coach. I hate our GM. I hate everything about this. I don't like this sucks. I don't want to be doing this. So you get chippy. I get it. And on the other side, you saw that the Texans are undisciplined. And as much as the coaching is, I think they love their coach, they also don't fear their coach enough to have them to stay disciplined and to not make dumb mistakes over and over again.
Oh man, that the first play encapsulates that in a nutshell for the Texans. First play.
You practice it over and over again. You walk through it. You've done all of that, and still,
it was great execution too, except for one guy. It was perfect execution. To your point, them practicing it, and they wanted to get it to Nico early, get Nico going early. Love that plan. got it to him on the wide receiver screen. An easy throw for your quarterback, simple too. Ain't got to worry about pass protection. Boom, balls out. It's an extension of the running game. I loved everything about it, and except for the ineligible man downfield for Laremy Tunsil. And the irony is, he's the most penalized offensive lineman in the league. And you saw everything that the Texans are capable of, and everything that keeps limiting the Texans from reaching that capability all in one play. All the self-inflicted wounds, the lack of discipline, and you're like, Larry Thompson, you're the best player on the O-line. Why would you? Like you said, you're in practice this play all week long. Right? It's in the script. First play of the game. We're supposed to be most focused, right? You can't blame it on I was tired or I got distracted. No, first play of the game. First play, and ineligible man downfield. So yeah, that Texans are the Texans a good team? Is the question. Are they a good team? That I don't know if we know just yet if the Texans are a good team. They beat the Bills, and that was a good win. That was a quality win. They still got Tennessee coming up next, so that division is not going to help us learn more about the Texans. But I mean, looking at in the AFC right now, yeah, I mean, I think I don't think the Texans they're not better than Kansas City or Buffalo. They're not better than Pittsburgh. We talked about this yesterday. I'll take Baltimore over the Texans. That gives you. Will we take the Chargers over the Texans right now? That's the question.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like in the last month is where you started to see more and more flaws in the Texans. And so there was the penalties before, and you had some of those flaws, but they were mostly in-house. They weren't things that were schematic disadvantages and things that people could really game plan. You can't really game plan that they're going to get 5 offensive line penalties. Yeah. It's not the defense can't really do a ton about that. But when you talk about just schematically and little pieces that people start to pick them apart with, it feels like people are figuring out this team more and more and more every week. And every week, there's not really an answer to it. It's just, you're just keep going out doing the same thing over and over again. And so now that teams are figuring you out and you still have the same mistakes you've been making all season with the penalties, it all just adds up. So your pass protection's still not good. So teams know they can rush you. Plus, now they're figuring out the way C.J. Stroud works. So they're taking away anytime you figure out anything that makes C.J. Stroud a little bit better, then they take it away. So they figure out what it is. And the problems are spawning up faster than your solutions. And so that team that beat the Bills a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, it doesn't feel like the same team anymore.
Yeah, that I agree with.
And so when you say, well, they beat the Bills, you go, yeah, but that was a different team. I mean, this team right now is a 500 team.
If they didn't have that division, that's
yeah. I'm just saying of average. I'm saying they're an average.
Because that division gives them a lot of easy wins.
Yeah,
against bad teams. You just get you got Jacksonville, bad team. The Colts are, I guess, the Colts are a bad team. I think the Colts could be better, but that the record, you are what your record says you are.
Yeah.
So no, I'm with you. I think of all the teams right now that are considered contenders in the AFC, I think there was 7 teams with at least 7 wins, something like that. They're at the bottom of that group.
Yeah,
I think they're and you're right. They got some work to do, but I'll say one good thing though, because I think CJ hasn't hit a second-year slump in my opinion. I just think what you brought up is, I think the things you brought up, obviously the pass protection and the injuries to Nico. I think that's a big part of it too. Bobby Slowick's development or his issues on early downs. I believe all of that has contributed to inconsistent play. But, I mean, CJ's still playing. He still makes some amazing throws. And he's still playing at a really high level while under pressure, because he's been under pressure. I didn't see what the pressure rate was for this game, but the previous 4 weeks, he was under pressure at least 40% of the time on those dropbacks. I still think CJ Stroud is capable of taking a leap. What we haven't seen is him taking the MVP caliber leap that some anticipated. And I think the problems that you brought up that haven't necessarily been addressed or haven't been solved or remedied, that's a big part of why he has just been inconsistent this year, but still playing good enough for them to win. He's not playing good enough for them to put him in an MVP conversation. No. But the defense, I don't think we've talked enough about how good the defense has been, because anytime you face the elite quarterback play, D'Amico Ryans has been able to put together a really good defensive game plan. That includes Buffalo. That includes the Detroit Lions. And 5 interception performance from Jared Goff. And he's been able to put together a good defense performance. And I would say on defense, even with some of the injuries, Will Anderson's been dealing with an injury. I think Kamari Lassiter was out for that game too. Man, they got good depth on that defense too. Remember, Artrey was suspended early on. I think he actually left that game too, dealing with an injury. The Texans got surprisingly good depth on defense. I'll give them a lot of credit for that. Even in the secondary, I mean, some of those young guys are starting to step up and make really good plays, big plays for the Texans secondary. So, and it's one of the better defenses in the NFL. Derek Stingley, I told you guys he was on his way to being an All-Pro. He didn't get challenged a ton, but when he is, man, he steps up. Like he's meeting the challenge. There's no doubt about that. So I think the secondary for the Texans is kind of leading the way with Will Anderson being out. Danielle Hunter's a man. He is a man amongst boys out there. He's got 7. He's leading the NFL in pressures with 73 pressures already on the season. And so he picked up the slack when they had lost Archery and then no Will Anderson. So they weren't able to pressure Cooper Rush as much as they wanted. But I like that Texans defense. They're opportunistic too. They're opportunistic and they get after the quarterback. They make a lot of havoc plays. They're top 5 in the NFL in havoc plays, just splash plays on defense. So the Texans, listen, they're still, in my opinion, they're still a year away from being a team that can challenge the elite teams in the AFC, and that's basically Kansas City and Buffalo.
No,
they're a year away.
I think they need a little bit more. They need a little bit more work to polish a lot of what they do with a lot of these players. They need to figure out that O-line, whether it's who they bring in. I think you definitely need to bring in veterans on that O-line or somebody on there to be a leader. I don't think there's a leader on that O-line because Laramie Tunsil can't be. He's who's supposed to be, but he can't be because you can't lead the league in penalties and be the leader. Like you just can't. Those two things can't go together because that goes into accountability. And if you're allowed to get away with being inconsistent and penalties, then why do I care?
Yeah.
And I mean that defense. If you look at the one touchdown they scored was, I believe Okudah was on it and just bit on Turpin, saying he was going to go outside, cut back inside, made a real good cut. That's one thing Turpin can do real well. And he cut inside, and then Kalen Bullock also bit to the outside as a free safety. And so
bad angle.
And both guys took 2 steps one way, and it opened up this gigantic lane. So it was a bust for 2 guys on one play, which doesn't happen a ton. And so that's their one real touchdown in there. So you did actually play defensively a really good game. It was just your offense should have been able to put up some more points. There was times where, you got behind the chains and couldn't get things moving. There was points where there was one where you went for it on 4th down and the play call was to go downfield. CJ missed the throw. It was definitely a miss, but I still would have run the football in that situation.
Yeah.
This is a Dallas Cowboys team you can run against. So I would have run the football right there. So I think that there's points of it where it's just all around. It feels like everyone takes blame, but no one's fixing it. So what is accountability with no action? And that's where the Texans feel like they're at, where everybody understands you walk off and you go to the presser afterwards and you go, that game's on me, man. I screwed it up. And then you come out and do the exact same thing the next week. And so if there's accountability with no action, then it's not real accountability. And on a player-friendly led coach, that's where you start to worry about it, that everybody knows what to say, and then coach pats you on the back and says, good job, and you're fine. And there's no ever punishment. There's nothing ever to get you to fix it because everyone's just happy with, showing up the next day and you're working hard in practice. I feel like there has to be a bit more put onto it from D'Amico Ryans up top to get this team where it needs to be, because it's just too many issues that keep happening week after week after week.
Yeah. And at least they got the second half scoring thing that they finally got a second half scoring touchdown. I think they're going 8 second half quarters without a touchdown, something like that. So they got 2 of them. They got a thick 6, and they also scored a touchdown on offense. So that's a good thing for the Texans. Also, and they weren't as bad on the third and longs. They weren't great on third down. They were 4 of 12 on third down, but they only had 5 third and longs. This is a team that leads the NFL in third and long situations. So somewhat improvement there. But you're right. They basically got the Texans got 2 games to get it together. They got Tennessee and they got Jacksonville. And then they got a bye week. So they got 3 weeks. But then they got the stretch after that versus Miami. Especially if Tua's healthy, they present a bit of a threat if Tua's healthy. At Kansas City versus Baltimore. In the season at Tennessee. Don't know what kind of shape Tennessee's going to be in by then, or if they'll even care by then. They may not give a damn. It's a rivalry game, so maybe they'll care. Who knows? That's a flex game. That's at Tennessee, so we shall see. But that 3-game stretch there, Miami at KC, and then versus Baltimore. And actually, you'll be. I want to say one of those, you're going up against the college football playoff in actually one of those games. I believe it's it's Saturday the 21st and 20th. So it'll be Saturday the 21st at Kansas City weekend, I believe. If you're going up against the college football playoff, right? Isn't that one of the weekends? I could be off there, but I know you're competing with the NFL on one of those.
Yeah.
And I believe it's that one, isn't it? Or is I'm mistaken on that? Okay. But I'll say this too for the Texans. They're gonna be a double-digit win team. They're gonna win that division. Basically, the question for the Texans now: last year they won a playoff game, which was big. Do you see the Texans winning a playoff game this year? That's gonna be the question. Because if they don't, almost feels like a little bit of regression for the Texans.
Yeah,
considering where they started last year, feels like that.
Yeah,
I'd feel that's kind of me with the question. I don't think they're going to challenge. Some people, including myself, thought, oh, maybe if they really are, if this is a really quick turnaround and they're on an accelerated track to be a contender, which they were last year, maybe they can contend with Kansas City or Buffalo. I don't think they're there yet. They still, they beat Buffalo. So they're still capable of it, but not from what we've seen consistently. So I think now my adjusted level of expectation is, can they win a playoff game now?
Yeah. No, I think originally you wanted to be in the conference championship game. And then, hey, man, if everything goes right, maybe we can sneak into a Super Bowl. But maybe the conference championship will really be that peak for this season, is what you were thinking. And now that seems pretty far off.
Yeah, your first 4 rounds of the college football playoff, December 20th and 21st.
Yes.
So you're going up against them. So the Texans will be going up against them. Is that the Netflix one? Oh, God, please no. No Netflix for that.
Netflix on Christmas, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a Christmas one. So that'll be like Wednesday. So that'll be the
next
the
Ravens.
Game. Oh,
yeah.
No. Oh, man. I'm dreading that. That's going to be brutal. Unless they have totally revamped their
it's going to go down at
apparatus.
halftime, too. Remember?
Oh.
It's halftime at that game.
What?
Beyonce.
What?
Beyonce's
really?
doing halftime of that game. Yeah.
Why do I not know that? Is
Did
that
you
real?
not see that?
I did not.
All
That
over
just
the
went.
Texans website and all they got
What?
released.
I missed that.
Yeah, Beyonce's doing a
Whoa.
halftime show of that game.
When was this announced?
Like 3 days ago.
Oh, I missed that, bro.
Maybe Sunday.
Missed that. My wifey doesn't know that either. She loves Beyonce.
No, it's a Christmas Beyonce halftime show on Netflix. So you maybe get 4 or 5 words out of Beyonce. You're gonna hit the stage, you're gonna see a leg on stage and then cut.
I did not realize that was the case. Oh man, that's big time. And so will Netflix air the concert?
They have to. Like, why would they not? First of all, I don't know how many people they have to even do a halftime show. Like, who's calling the game in that? I don't know for Netflix.
I agree. And now I'm even more paranoid because now you're talking about Beyonce, the Beehive, they're gonna be tuning in.
That's what I'm saying.
It's gonna be just like the damn Tyson fight then. Oh, this is gonna be brutal. Yeah, Netflix is not prepared for that. They're not prepared for streaming a live sporting event and also a concert with one of the biggest pop stars on the planet. This is not gonna be good. No. I didn't know that actually.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
So it got announced maybe yesterday actually.
Okay. I must have missed that. Missed my timeline. My timeline has failed me. My timeline has failed me, man. That should come across my timeline right there, right?
Or at least your wife should have come in and told you.
That's what I'm saying. That there are multiple timelines where I should have been informed of this news. My wife should have come across her timeline, or as a Beyonce post.
I'm
should have come across
surprised
my
I know
timeline as a
before you.
Texas post. I don't even know how I missed that. Oh, there you go. All right. Appreciate Patrick for keeping us well informed. All right. Let's go to the break here. We'll come back. We'll get into some Texas football conversation. Hear from Steve Sarkisian about their upcoming opponent, the Kentucky Wildcats. He says it's their biggest game of the season. I think I know where coach is going with this one, but we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian on the other side. Talk some Texas football right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. I saw actually earlier because I've been saying that Texas defense is so good, we got to start coming up with a nickname for the Texas defense. It's at that point now. That's how good it is. I think by the end of the season, we'll be having a conversation about where this defense ranks historically among the all-time greatest defenses in Texas football history. And I saw a Texas, Jimmy the Gringo. I'll give him a shout out here. He threw out the 512 crew because they got so many guys from the 512 area code.
They do. They do.
I didn't really. Yeah, they do have a lot of them though. When you think about it, they got a lot of guys from that area code. When you think about it, it's got Alfred Collins, Makuba, Barron, Taft, all from the Central Texas area, and those are like some of your main contributors in it. So can't count a whole defense that because the entire defense isn't that, but I do feel the 5-1-2 crew thing. I feel that. All right, let's get.
I like the stat that the interception to touchdown ratio right now for Texas.
Well, you got 15 interceptions.
15 interceptions and 3 passing touchdowns allowed.
That's pretty sick.
So 5-to-1 ratio of interceptions to touchdowns allowed in the air.
That's pretty sick.
It's a pretty crazy stat.
That's a pretty nasty ratio there. No, I'm with you. They're stingy on defense, man. They really are. Like as a matter of fact, can we hear because I know we're gonna get to him talking about Kentucky. Can we get cut 13 though, talking about the dominance of the secondary, since we're already on it a little bit and talking about how good it is, and that is that 5-1-2 crew. I mean, that's Jade, that's Makuba, that's Taft. I believe they were the ones that started referencing the 5-1-2 status as something they were proud of, to be all playing in the same secondary. Here's Sark when Sark was asked about the dominance of that secondary and how good they've played so far this season.
Yeah, so I think the experience of our secondary is what has led to a lot of this. Now they're all very talented players, and but when you start talking about Jade and how much football he's played, and Manny Muhammad and Jalen Gilbo and Makuba and Michael Taft, and then now you're adding in a Jelani McDonald, and then I think incorporating the linebackers into that, these guys are really dialed. You know, they just don't. We don't blow coverages. The communication is at a really high level. They recognize the route combinations that are coming. They make every pass play feel contested. When there is a guy open, it's kind of like, what happened? You know, everyone's like, how did that happen? And in the end, I think they're playing with a lot of confidence, you know, and that's a great space to be in when you're playing from a confident football standpoint.
Talking about that secondary. And they do have a lot of experience in that secondary. There's no doubt. I mean, Barron has played a lot of football. So has Makuba. Taft played a lot of football as well. Malik Muhammad's kind of Malik Muhammad and Jalen Gilbo are your more inexperienced players in that secondary. And both of those guys have played really well. Malik Muhammad's playing like one of the better cornerbacks in the SEC at this time too. So the secondary has led the way for that Texas defense. And in terms of ranking the secondary, I mean, you got to rank the secondary as one of the best secondaries in Texas football history too. When we started looking at it, by the time it's all said and done, statistically, that's where they rank in terms of personnel. I mean, I think that 2005 secondary will probably always win the day when you're talking about personnel, and then some of the great ones before that when they established DBU. But this one, looking at the stats, they've only allowed 58% completion percentage. As Patrick mentioned, 3 touchdowns to 15 interceptions. I mean, that's a salty. You get that 2005 secondary allowed 51% completion percentage. They allowed 10 touchdowns, had 11 interceptions. No, they have that 2009 secondary, also amazing secondary, right? One of the best secondaries in Texas football history. 55% completion percentage, 14 touchdowns, 25 interceptions. They made a lot of plays on the ball. Earl Thomas and company made a lot of plays on the ball. Blake Gideon in that secondary, right? The safety coach right now. Then there's my secondary, 01 secondary. 50% completion percentage, 6 touchdowns allowed, only 15 interceptions. So they're going to allow fewer touchdowns than we did, and we only allowed 6. We was pretty damn stingy. 15 interceptions. They'll end up with more interceptions than we did too. They're not going to touch 25 interceptions by the 2009 team, but they'll definitely allow the fewest touchdowns. At least right now they're trending to allow the fewest touchdowns of any of those really prestigious secondaries. Passer rating allowed 91.9. That would be lower than 2009. That would be lower than 2005. Not lower than 2001, where we allowed an 87.9 passer rating. Different eras of football for all those, of course, but it's interesting. I mean, There's not a secondary that has been, on the 40 acres in the last 50 years that's going to be able to say they have better numbers than this secondary. Legit. Now, I think there's been more talented secondaries. 05 and 09 were probably more talented secondaries overall. Just look at the talent. I mean, 05, you got multiple first-round picks and multiple Thorpe Award winners in the secondary. 09, you got, a first-round pick in Earl Thomas in that secondary and a guy who's probably going to be a borderline Hall of Famer, like a Pro Football Hall of Famer in Earl Thomas in that secondary. And they have numerous other draft picks. I mean, Curtis, what you have for like Curtis Brown and, oh, man, I'm trying to think of all the guys in that secondary. In that 2009 secondary, they were really good. They ended up being NFL players. Blake Gideon didn't go to NFL, but Blake Gideon was a hell of a player. But so 09, I think, may have had more overall talent, possibly, and maybe I'm just underrating this group because they haven't had their draft day yet. But I don't know if 01, 05, or 09 played better as a group and played better as a unit than the 2024 secondary. Like that's. And they're as dialed in as it gets. They're running routes for people. They're as prepared, and they have, in terms of the synchronicity, they play as well in terms of the cohesion and in terms of the communication as well as any secondary that I've seen and even played in at Texas. That's really kind of their superpower. And maybe that is part of the experience factor with this group. All right, let's hear Sark talk about Kentucky. He was asked about the Kentucky Wildcats, their upcoming opponent. Here's him when he was asked about whether it's a trap game or not, which a lot of people have described it as a trap game, being between Arkansas, between A&M, between two rivals where you got to go on the road to play those rivals. Could easily get distracted late in the year, college football playoff rankings, all of this stuff. Here's what Sark had to say about whether Kentucky was a trap game or not.
I just said this is, to me, this is the biggest game of the football season. This is the most important game of the year. Last home game of the year. I envision us putting our best foot forward. I really do. I think our guys are going to come ready to play.
It is the last home game, which means it'll be the last scheduled home game, which means it'll be the senior night, as they call it, but. It's probably a little bit deeper than senior night these days because of the changing landscape of college sports. You got the transfer portal to take into account. If you're really good, like Texas is, you have guys leaving early who'll go to the NFL as juniors, so they're not actually seniors. So it'll be the last opportunity for a lot of folks who are not just seniors to play at Texas. So it's emotionally charged. It's an emotionally charged environment. You have to know that they got parents on the field with flowers and mom is crying, and you got your nieces and nephews and stuff out, little cousins out there. It's a very different environment than you're accustomed to before the game, because usually you get in the mindset, you get whatever your own in-game persona is, or on-field persona. You flip the switch and then you can focus from that point on. You really got to you got to wait to flip the switch on your own field mindset and persona on senior night. You flip it late, because you can't be in that mindset when mama wants to hug and cry on the field and you got to hand her flowers. It just don't work that way. You're going to have to get out of character. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't Black Caesar then. I had to go hug mama and love on mama and take some pictures. And then you got to go flip the switch. Some guys can do it and some guys can't. It does disrupt the routine, just not your normal routine as a player. That's the only kind of emotional charge. You're not used to, some guys end up crying because it's their last home game and their mom's on the field and she's crying and stuff like that. You're not used to doing that before a game. So it can kind of throw you off a little bit, but not enough to distract the team or anything. But it is another thing to account for if you will have to. Here's Sark talking about the coaching, the coaching chess match that he's going to be involved in with the opposing coach, Coach Stoops. Yes, A. Stoops, the coach of Kentucky. Here's Steve Sarkisian.
Yeah, I first of all, a ton of respect for Coach Stoops. I think his teams are coached really, really well. Very sound football teams in all three phases. They're gonna grind you out defensively, and then they're gonna grind you out offensively. And when they get their opportunities in the fourth quarter, they're gonna take their shots at you. And I think that's what happened in the Ole Miss game. They tried their best in the Georgia and Tennessee games to do the same. But ton of respect. I mean, very talented defensive football team. These guys have NFL guys all over the place. So heck of a challenge for us.
Yeah, I mean, they're not a good team. I mean, they've won 5 games all season long. So they're 5-5, but they play their best football games against their best opponents.
They're 4-6.
Huh?
They're 4-6.
What?
Kentucky. Yes, 4-6.
Oh, 4-6. Sorry, sorry. 4-6. So they play their best football. I apologize. Play their best football against basically their best opponents. That's when you've seen them play their best football. Of course, against Tennessee. You go look at the games where ultimately when they play a ranked opponent, that's kind of where they get pumped up for their ranked opponents. When they played Georgia, 13-12 loss against Georgia. Ole Miss was a 20-17 loss. They was playing against number 6 Tennessee. They lost by 10, but they were competitive with Tennessee on the road there, 28-18. Even Vanderbilt, I don't know if Vanderbilt's not ranked anymore, but that was a 7-point loss to Vanderbilt. As we know, Texas knows, Vanderbilt can be a really competitive team. So even 4-6, they're not a good football team, but they have played their best football against the best and most highest ranked opponents they played on the schedule. And so they'll get the best. Texas will get their best shot. Guarantee you that. Are they good enough to pull the upset? Their offense isn't. Their offense is not good enough for them to pull the upset against Texas. Not against the defense that we just talked about. If that defense has been consistent, there's not been, a situation where we've seen regression or we've seen the defense have an off game. And I don't expect that, 11th game of the season to be the game against Kentucky, to be the game where the defense is distracted or has an off performance. All right, we come back. We'll get into Off the Record right here on the Rodcast. Coming back right here, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into a little off the record, but this will be an off the record that's kind of on the record. Lane Kiffin has made a little bit of news because Lane Kiffin claims that he's been talking to other coaches, which I don't know, maybe they do it via the chat they have. They got a group chat they're in, all the SEC coaches. It might be on that group chat, or maybe he's doing it, via some other means. But he says he's talked to other coaches, and he said, "quote I've talked to other coaches, so I'll just kind of give you the feeling from some other coaches that they don't want to be in it." And he's referencing the SEC title game. He says basically that they don't want to be in the SEC title game. He said he said the reward to get a bye in the college football playoff versus the risk to getting knocked out completely. That's a really big risk. And he's claiming that he's talked to coaches who they don't want to play in the SEC title game. What coaches he's talking about?
I get the concept of it. I like because it's a thing. It's a fan base thing. Totally. I know a lot of fans that are like, "What good are these conference championships?" You're like, I get the fact that if one loss will destroy your season, why would you want to play in a game that can get you a loss if you can just avoid that game and you're still into the playoffs? But at the same part, that's why you should have them, because if you don't want to play football to win football, then you shouldn't be in football. I know that sounds stupid, but but the reality is if you don't want to go play, if you say, "Cool, you know what, I'd rather not play in the cool, okay, you're out of the playoffs too. Everyone, you're done. You don't want to play, you're out. You don't think you can win. If you're worried about losing more than you think you can win, then you don't get to play anymore. This is the whole point of it. This is what we're watching. I get for Texas, it would be great if Texas could win out and have a short thing have a bye week for 2 weeks, and then go into the playoffs. Would that be better than playing an SEC championship game for winning a national championship? Probably. But
yeah,
I'd also rather have a team that wants to go win the SEC championship and win the national championship.
Yeah, I mean, if you take a loss in the SEC title game, say you Texas, you take a second loss, there's no guarantee you get into the playoff. They could, that could be. We don't know how everything plays out. I still think Texas with a second loss would get it. I think they would make. And I know this is actually all the conspiracy theorists out there on the grassy knoll who always think Texas is getting advantages and privileges and benefits.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. They would find a way to get Texas into the college football playoff if they could justify it, because they know it's a ratings monster, and that's why they would try to do it. They would try. So I do think if Texas was still in the running, and they would be as a 2-loss team, and that loss came in the SEC title game, I don't know, against whoever it may be, I think they still have a good chance to get in. But they don't have a quality win really on the resume.
Yeah.
Not yet. The Aggies actually would, I think it's going to represent their only quality win when they beat the Aggies. Right? Because Vandy is not ranked anymore.
No, Vandy's not ranked anymore.
Michigan's not a quality win. I mean, Oklahoma's not a quality win. There's no quality win really on the schedule. Arkansas was a good win, but Arkansas is not a quality team.
No, but by a team that is still ranked, which is funny.
That's a quality win. You don't have it.
Yeah, which is funny because I'll see the memes that other teams will make, and it'll basically say the Texans or the Longhorns have not beaten anybody that has a current, and then they'll mention teams that they beat that don't have a current, but they beat them when they were ranked.
It's like you got to apply the same standard.
Like, I get you can't work in this world. I get it, man. I get it's hard on you, but
yeah, you got to apply the same standard to it. Yeah, so week to week that does change. If you got a team that's trending the right way and playing really well, and you got that win on your schedule, that'll help you. But yeah, I think for Texas, yeah, it is possible that if they, just like kind of Lane Kiffin scenario here, they go to the SEC title game, lose there, that their status for the college football playoff will be up in the air. I still think they would make it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, the difference of if you don't have a conference championship, Texas beats A&M. There's just no conference championship game. You just throw away conference championship games overall. Best regular season record wins. Then Texas gets a bye week, so they get 2 bye weeks as opposed to having to play those 2 weeks, because if you lose that game, you're definitely playing in week 1 because you don't get the bye anymore.
Yeah, no, it's definitely incentive. You want to win because you're gonna play. It's gonna be a heavyweight opponent you're gonna play, and then after that, it's nothing but heavyweights.
No, but it's when everything happens where I want all the money I can possibly get. We need all the money in this game. We need all of these things. But pay me $50 million a year. Hey, we need you to play an SEC championship. Well, maybe if we can work around that. Come on, man. I get you want all the fun, but you don't want to have to take the pressure of it. I get it's pressure. That's what you get paid for. Go win the games.
That's what the money's for.
Go win the
deal
games.
with all the pressure. Yeah, no doubt. But that's why also the ratings are gonna be through the roof because these are big games now. And then once you get past the SEC, like the college football playoff games, a lot of these are elimination games, de facto games, seeding games for the college football playoff. So I think the ratings for those will be up too, just because even though you've had these title games for the conferences before, now there's more on the line about. If you have Texas loses in the SEC title game, and then you're talking about that affecting whether they're going to make the college football playoff or not. So I understand what he's saying, but this is why college football is getting the juice in the ratings. That's why they're about these. The ratings are about to go. Man, they're about to be out of this world. I mean, a different stratosphere, I think.
And it's that world where you live in where people always look at things and go, "It's not fair." Yeah, almost nothing in life is fair.
Yeah,
you're the best.
Seriously.
Go play the game. I get that it's not fair that these other teams don't have a chance to lose that week, and it may hurt you that they were off and you lost. That's life. Sorry, man. You gotta go play the game. I get it's not ideal in your situation, but you know what else you would hate if you're not in the game? You know what you would really hate? That there wasn't a game. If Lane Kiffin's the odd team out, they're 13 and they're hoping that somebody loses and they can sneak back into the college football playoff because of the game, then he's going to be cheering for the SEC championship, but he doesn't want to play in it.
Yeah, it's all about, hey, what case can I make for my team? And now he's just starting to make case. This is a slow way of starting to make his case for Ole Miss just in case they need it. No, you're right about that. All right, we'll get to some back to some Texas Longhorn conversation. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian a little bit talking about one of what I thought was one of the possible solutions, one of the possible remedies that Sark had come up with for all the different problems presented to them by that 3-high defense. We'll get into that a little bit. We'll also talk about the Texans and the Cowboys and their Monday night showdown. Texans with a big win over the Cowboys there, and other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. I got to start looking at this quarterback class that came in. They may be a special group, and now we're starting to see other rookie quarterbacks now starting to ascend. We'll talk about that a little bit on the other side. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire, Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him hooking us up there. He also hooks us up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day, which is already posted on X at the Horn ATX. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll today. Which disappointment in the NFL has been the most surprising this year? Right now, the Cowboys winning it, not run away with it. We're winning it 40%. The 49ers there at 33%, the Bengals at 18%, and the Jets at 9%.
Yeah. I mean, I picked the Bengals, so I'm way off here. I don't have my finger on the pulse here with the folks because 39% say it's the Dallas Cowboys. Probably because that's more of our listenership, or probably a lot more Dallas Cowboys fans. So I get that. And yeah, no doubt the Cowboys are a disappointment, a huge one.
By the way, can we show this poll to Woody Johnson and just let him know all the money you spent and get all these pieces and everything? And everyone's still like, you're the Jets. It's not surprising you suck.
Yeah, pretty much.
You could put together a Pro Bowl team on that roster. We'd still think you'd be below 500.
We all saw it coming. And I think that's also disdain for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
definitely. People just don't like Aaron Rodgers either. They just don't like Aaron Rodgers. So a lot of people were rooting for the Jets to fail ultimately because they wanted to see Aaron Rodgers kind of eat some humble pie. And
I wasn't. Yeah, I was definitely not rooting for Aaron Rodgers. At the same time, I am surprised they're as bad as they are.
No, I'm with you because like I said, we talked about this earlier. It's surprising, because I think about the Steelers, number one, because I talked about how I think they are the least talented team in that division, but they're the best team in the division. So they have the least amount of talent. But if you look at how they play as a unit and the cohesion and the synchronicity, they're the best team. And they with all three phases, and they play team football to beat you. But if you were ranking the best players and the best players on rosters, Baltimore got more talent than Pittsburgh. Hell, the Cincinnati Bengals got more talent than Pittsburgh. They're on this list as one of the biggest disappointings or the most surprising disappointment of the season. That's who I picked. And you can argue the Browns have more overall just talent, man for man on the roster. But when you start thinking about who plays the best brand of football, the Steelers do. And the Jets are not a team. They're an accumulation of talent. And that's what the Jets are. And they are so far from being a team. They don't play any type of team football. There's no complementary football. No. Those phases don't support one another. They're almost working independently.
Yeah.
the special teams, defense, offense, and they literally were, because remember Robert Saleh basically was the head coach of the defense and allowed Nathaniel Hackett and Aaron Rodgers to control the offense. And you see that play out on the football field. They almost just work as separate entities instead of a cohesive unit. And that's what a lot of teams are dealing with. The Bengals are proving to be that right now. They're more of an accumulation of talent than they are a good team. And that's the challenge for any coach, right? Turn that accumulation of talent into a great team. That's what Sark's trying to do. Hell, in college, I think it's probably a bigger challenge than maybe in the NFL. At least in the NFL, although everybody can play. At the college level, you clearly have more talent. Some teams have more talent than others, and you got to turn that talent into a competitive unit and a team that plays together. All right, there you go. That's the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. Oh, shout out to my man. We were talking about this earlier in the Off the Record segment, where Lane Kiffin said that I'm paraphrasing, basically said that he has talked to coaches, and some of those coaches have expressed to him they'd rather not play in the SEC title game because of the risk of losing in the SEC title game and potentially losing out on a college football playoff spot. And I think one of the issues for him would probably be his situation with his team, and kind of brings up what Trent, my man Trent. Hey, good to hear from you, Trent.
Oh, good.
He says, I do think the college football playoff committee would be willing to let in a 2-loss SEC team who did not play in the SEC title game over a team who earned their 3rd loss in the SEC title game. Yeah, the committee can do whatever they want to do, really.
Yeah, 100%. No, 100% they would. I think that's just a matter of if it's a better lineup, if they'd rather have that. Yeah, a better product. I think they would in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're looking for, guys. If they can justify it with whatever the data points they're looking at, I think they would. Because remember last year they kind of set a precedent with the Florida State thing, saying, "Listen, if we don't think your quarterback is up to snuff, yes, it's a backup. We don't really care about your record. Doesn't matter to us. We're looking at the product as it stands right now, and are we going to be able to pick the best 12 teams for the playoff?" And I know of course, there are parameters, but if it allows them some wiggle room to pick a better storyline and a better product overall for a more competitive product to take the 2-loss team that's hadn't been in the SEC title game, I think they'll do it. So I think they've given themselves enough freedom and wiggle room and latitude to be able to, make some of those decisions if need be. If they have to, kind of operate outside of the data points or stretch those data points a little bit, I think they can do it, or have a loose interpretation of it. I think they'll be able to do that. All right. Thanks for the question, Trent. Appreciate that. We'll get to some NFL news, notes, and nuggets here. But first, let's get to the Horn headlines. So let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories today with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Rockets lost a nail-biter 101-100 to the Bucks last night, snapping a 5-game win streak for Houston. Damian Lillard made the game winner with 3 seconds left, and the Rockets didn't have an answer. Fred VanVleet once again led the way for Houston with 26 points. Tonight, the Mavericks take on the Pelicans, and the Spurs face the Thunder as NBA Cup play resumes. And in the NFL, the Texans got their 34-10 win over the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. Joe Mixon scored 3 touchdowns with over 150 all-purpose yards to pace Houston in the victory. Both teams play divisional games next week, with Dallas taking on the Commanders and Houston playing the Titans. And that's your Horn headlines.
All right. Thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those. All right. Man. Speaking of Horn headlines, Jerry Jones has been speaking to the media. He spoke to the media after, of course, the game last night. He continues to say that he does not believe that Mike McCarthy has lost the locker room. Mike McCarthy has not lost the locker room. I don't know if he's lost the locker room as much as I don't know if he ever had the full commitment, investment, and respect of the locker room. And by the way, Jerry, that's your fault. So I don't know if he necessarily lost the locker room, because I don't know if he ever totally had it. And like I said, I think that's because of the status that Jerry has him as being a guy who, I'm not calling him a puppet, but he doesn't have total control. And Jerry almost circumvents his authority oftentimes with the team, with the players. So he's more of a figurehead and an offensive play calling coordinator than the traditional head coach, who the chain of command, all the locker room goes through the head coach, then the head coach goes to the GM. But the Cowboys, the chain of command is different, where you can circumvent the head coach and go straight to the GM with your issues or problems. And that's usually not the way it works.
Well, and two, what was the problem earlier this year that Jerry said? Was it the curtains, or was it something else where he said, oh no, it was the locker room and having the tours. And he said, no one's ever come in my office and complained, and if they did, I wouldn't care.
Yep, he said that.
And then he goes, the locker room doesn't come to me and complain about the coach losing them, so they don't do it. You're like, yeah, Jerry, you've already told the team, anything you complain to me about, I don't care about. Mm-hmm. I'm running this team the way I run it, and I'm paying you a lot of money to do what I do. So when they don't complain because you tell them not to complain, it doesn't mean that they're happy. It just means they know better. And so they just go, okay, I'll just play out my contract, and as long as you pay me enough money, I'll be here. I'll show up and do my job. Millions of people do it all around the U.S. every day. They show up to a job they don't like, with a boss they don't like, and work and do their job because that's what they're paid to do. It happens all day, every day. It happens in the NFL, and Jerry, for whatever reason, believes that it's not happening because he takes care of them well enough that he thinks, oh, no, when I see them with their wife and kids, they're nice to me. Well, yeah, because you're paying them $15 million. Yeah. Be real nice to be able to pay me $15 million.
Damn right. You're damn right about that. No, I totally agree with you. And so I think at this point, of course, Mike McCarthy's going. My big talking point all day has been, I can't wait to see what the checklist is for the new head coach, like for who you want to hire. Like, where do they go? Are they going young, or are they going some fresh face, or are we going with a proven veteran? Are we going from college, or are we going with somebody that's an NFL coach already?
I'm really curious of how long it drags on.
Hey, that's another one. That's a great point too. Do
Jerry
they already have the guy in mind? Good point.
to drag things out.
Yeah, it'll take a couple of months just for the free publicity.
Just to let every good coaching hire, everyone that you really want, all the fans would want, to all be gone and off the table. And Jerry's still sitting there going, guys, look who we can get. Guys, I've got your 14th and 17th choice still in the running. Like, Jerry, this is not what we wanted.
Right. Even in the interviewing process, I can't wait to see who they bring in.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll tell you a lot too, who they're interviewing. Are they going to do their due diligence?
I mean, Jason
Witten's interview as many. Yeah. Oh man, honestly, they should interview everybody. I wouldn't go that route. They should interview I've always said this. If I had a job opening and I was a GM, I don't know what the NFL limit is on interviews. I don't even know if they have one. I would interview as many as they would allow. And if they didn't have a number or a limit, I would, no joke, I'd probably bring in 50, 60 candidates. People will be like, this is ridiculous. I don't know how, because to me, it's the perfect chance for you to siphon ideas and to steal ideas and get insight into all of the different teams around the league, because everybody wants to impress you in those interviews. So everybody's going to reveal their plan. Everybody's going to give you their vision. Everybody's going to give you all the insight and the tidbits and the nuggets from their time at the previous location and where they were. They give you all that information. They want the job. So I probably would stay away from the guys or the coaches who have so much clout where they'll look at my opportunity as the head coaching opportunity. They'll look at it as, oh, you know what? They'll have to weigh it against other job opportunities. I'll probably bring in the guys who they're desperate to want to get the job because they'll give me more information. And what I would do is I would just start building a database of information on other teams and ideas. And what they do in the interview is you present your problems to them. You know what they do? They bring you solutions. You literally can send them questions and be like, yeah, I want you to try to come in with a plan to solve these issues, because these were the Cowboys' issues on offense, and see if you got a plan together. If we like your plan, we'll hire you. They'll give you solutions. They'll literally come up with them for you. I'm not joking. This is the way interviews work when they go through. It's why they get you a second and third interview process, because they want to get deeper into the ideas that you have in more detail. I don't know why they limit interviews. I'd interview 30, 40 candidates. I really would. And the whole time, I just would be stealing ideas, and I'd be stealing information and analysis and insight. I'd have questions ready to go about other teams and how they operate. If one guy didn't give me information, I'd say, move on. Give me somebody else from that organization that will give me information, because they'll give it to you. They don't care. They want to win it. They want to get a job. They have no loyalty to these organizations. They're trying to get a job. They're trying to get the next contract. That loyalty thing is way overrated in the NFL. They don't have loyalty to those teams. They don't have loyalty to you if you won't pay them. Guarantee you. And those interviews, a lot of times, they understand the coaching network is such a small community. I may not get the job with the Cowboys, but that coach that moves on, that's in that interview too, or that front office guy that's in an interview that moves on somewhere else, he'll want to hire me because I impressed him. So that necessarily always sounds about impressing the the owner of that specific team, so you can get that specific job. There's so much incest, there's so much incestuous culture in the NFL where you're hiring. I mean, look at the NFC East, for God's sakes, right now. Kellen Moore's on the Eagles as their OC. Dan Quinn's the head coach of Washington, used to be the DC and the OC for the Cowboys, all over the place. And so oftentimes they always tell you in preseason, right, you won't put something on film. So when you get cut, it may not be the team that drafted you that wants to keep you. It'll be the team that played against you. Or it'll be another team that had you on their board and said, hey, man, I told you he was a good player. Look what he did in the preseason. And they'll bring you up on their, practice squad or something like that. That's the way the NFL works. And it's not just at the player level. It's at the coaching level too. So this is a grand opportunity for the Cowboys. Use the vacancy to get information and to get creative solutions to your problems. Because the NFL's coaches around the league, they will offer them to you because they want that job. They want that job. And then when you hire your head coach, he can do the same thing with his assistants. That's the beauty of it. You can do all that. You can do this, and then bring them in, and then hire your head coach and say, hey, I want you to do the same thing with the assistants. Bring a ton of them in, and I want to do the same thing. I want them to be troubleshooting our ideas. I want them to come up with creative solutions for us. I want you to throw out these specific questions, and I want to see how they answer. We want to get information. Not only that will help us out and help us offer some critical thinking and some conceptual creativity to solve our own internal problems. But I want information on those other teams and how they work and what they do well. And ultimately, that's why people kept hiring Belichick coaches, right? They want the Belichick model. The reason Belichick would not tell his assistant coaches, he wouldn't give them all of his secrets and wouldn't give them the keys to the kingdom is because he was too paranoid about teams stealing his information and stealing his secrets and then therefore closing the gap on the Patriots because he knows that's what they do. He knows that's what they do. He knew it for years. He's like, that's what I do. Hell yeah, they're going to do it. Cowboys, you should do that. So I want to hear about them bringing in 15, 20 candidates. People are like, that's crazy. You should be able to narrow it down. Why? Why should I be able to narrow it down? You think the Cowboys know what they want in the coach? Mike Tomlin is one of the greatest hires in the NFL, and the Pittsburgh Steelers openly admit we had no idea who he was when we hired him. We did not know he was going to be the guy when he walked in that interview. And he impressed us to the point where we brought him back. We brought him back and said, guys, I think he checks all the boxes. We have this list, all right, of requirements that we have to be the Pittsburgh Steelers head coach. And we know what we want because we're good at it. We're better than anybody else in this league at keeping coaching basically turnover to a minimum, right? Not a lot of turnover all the time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So they like consistency in the message. They like continuity in the staff. And they looked at Tomlin after the interview and said he checks all the boxes. He's our guy. So you might have that too. You might interviewing all these candidates go because they were it was a Rooney Rule thing, like they are the Rooney Rule, and they were trying to lead by example and say, no, we need to give a lot of different candidates opportunity here, and let's bring them in and see if they, if they impress us. And Mike Tomlin did. Mike Tomlin got the job. So you might have that moment too. You might have lightning in a bottle that happens where you go, holy Chicago, I think we found one. We found a Sean McVay. Look at this dude. This dude's unbelievable. Nobody knew about this guy. He's unbelievable. He's great. We found a Ben Johnson out of nowhere. Maybe you will find that guy. I'm not Ben Johnson. We don't know if he's going to be a head coach. You get my point. So I think the Cowboys, with this vacancy, don't waste it. Even if you hire the right guy, I think you should make it an expansive search. Expansive and thorough as you can do. All right, there you go. Random rant. All right, that was before the rant of the day. Should have been the rant of the day. All right, we come back. We'll get into the rant. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian. He actually was asked about why he won't use this specific concept anymore. And I thought he gave a pretty logical answer. My question is, why didn't you use it versus Arkansas? Because my data suggests it might have been a remedy against that 3-high defensive presentation that they broke out versus the Longhorns. So we'll talk about that, talk some Texas football on the other side, all that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into some Texas football conversation. Texas will be going up against Kentucky this weekend. And Kentucky's defense, actually, they have NFL players at every level. That's the, if you want to look at a threat, is the fact that they have an NFL player, guy that's going to be drafted at every level of their defense. And they have a defensive-minded head coach. And when Texas faced a defensive-minded head coach, Venables, Kirby Smart, Clark from Vandy, Texas had off games offensively versus those teams. And in the recent game, Sam Pittman's an offensive guy, but Arkansas did something really interesting and I think really smart. They decided to go back to the original game plan in 2021, at least defensively, the original game plan in 2021 when they blew Texas out from that Barry Odom defensive strategy and using the 3 high safety look versus Texas. And Sark said they used it almost exclusively. The film that I watched confirms that they used it almost exclusively versus Texas. So the question I think Longhorn fans had is, okay, so why was it so effective versus Texas when Texas should have been familiar with it? Right, when Texas should have had a lot of experience with it. And I had documented several times that Sark has an antidote, right? He has a solution or at least a protocol for how to deal with the 3 high safety defense. He didn't initially when he got to Texas, but so many years having to face it in the Big 12. Hell, last year you faced it 7 out of the 12 teams on your schedule, either majored or minored in it. And Sark had to come up with a way to be able to solve it or an antidote to it, which I think he did. And we documented it on this show, and we'll talk about it a little bit here in just a second. But against Arkansas, he dabbled in some of those concepts that he used to counter the 3 high, but dabbled is, to me, the right term, because I don't necessarily think he was gratuitous and extreme in his usage of these concepts. And I'm sure he had a reason for that because, Sark's done a good job dialing up plays. So I'm not questioning whether Sark, is capable or had the knowledge to do it. I know he does. But I just want to know the reason why he decided to be so moderate in his approach versus Arkansas. Because essentially what he was doing in the Big 12, which I thought was simplistically brilliant, he was using extreme formations and personnel groupings to force the 3 high presentation to abandon its disguise and abandon its shell. And I made the comparison that kind of reminded me of the Predator movies when you're trying to kill the Predator. And Arnold Schwarzenegger originally tries to kill the Predator. It has this amazing camouflage technology. And the biggest issue killing the Predator was you can't see it. You can't find it. So the biggest challenge, the number one priority is, all right, I have to force it to reveal itself. And once it reveals itself, then I can kill it. But if I never see it, and if I can't find it, I can't diagnose it, I can't decipher it, then I can't kill it. And that's the 3 high to me in a nutshell. And I think when Sark was in the Big 12 ecosystem, did a great job of getting extreme in some of his usage and deployment of personnel groupings and formations. And then that in turn would force the 3 high to get closer to either its run fits or to respect the extreme formation. And then it would start to creep slowly, abandoning its shell, revealing to you what coverage it actually was in, or revealing to you what 2 high or single high structure the defense was going to be in, giving the quarterback more accurate indicators. All right, and clarity in his pre-snap read. The 3 high usually does a great job of kind of doubling down on the deception and disguise of the pre-snap. So your pre-snap disguise, your pre-snap read never matches your post-snap diagnosis. So what Sark would do is get extreme, and he did this with the 6 O-line package, the Big 12 package, the Big 11, Big 12 package. He did it with lots of the empty formation is something he threw out there as well. He would go power sets. There were times when he'd go into power packages with, like I said, the Big 11 or the Big 12. The pony package is also kind of a power package, even though it's no fullback on the field. It is a run set because you have more tight ends and running backs on the field than wide receivers. So people don't look at it as a set spread usually means you got more wide receivers on the field than you do tight ends and running backs. So you spread things out. And the 3-high defense was made to counter spread systems. That's why it was created in the Big 12, a spread pace and space conference. And it was the perfect counter for spread offenses. And it was the perfect counter for RPO-based offenses. Why? Because the disguise pre-snap would deceive quarterbacks on their pre-snap, their count for the RPO, right? So if they have the numbers advantage in the box, they would hand it off. They don't have the numbers advantage in the box. Based on the defender they're reading, they would throw to the tag. Well, it's hard to determine where defenders are dropping to and where they're dropping from with the 3-high safety look, because you're bringing them down from depth. And sometimes they come from the third level all the way down to the first level of the defense. And they do that late, well, your box count was off. And you handed off the ball thinking you had a numbers advantage in the box when you actually didn't. And so then you can end up throwing into a numbers disadvantage because you were wrong about the numbers, the advantage that you had in the box or out on the perimeter. So it just plays a lot of mind games, right? It's the truth that tells a lie. And so Sark, to eliminate the mind games that play with your quarterback, you force it to have to show its hand. And you did that with empty, with pony package, with quads, with 6-0 line package. Now in this game versus Arkansas, Sark chose to just use 12 personnel. Use 1 back, 2 tight ends. They played 12 personnel 43% of the time in that game versus Arkansas. And so that was the heavier set he wanted to use. That was a power set he chose to use. And Arkansas, I don't think they respected it enough. But Sark was asked in the Monday media availability against Arkansas, why so much 1 back, 2 tight ends? Why so much 12 personnel rather than converting back to the 6-0 line package, which worked so well in the Big 12 versus those 3-high looks? Here's what Sark had to say.
Yeah, I think Gunner has changed a little bit of that for us. You know, we feel very comfortable with Gunner being in there as a C area blocker, where in the past we felt like, you know, we needed an extra offensive lineman to do that stuff. Like I said, every game takes on a life of its own, and we try to manipulate defenses the way that we can. And you know, Arkansas was going to play a 3-safety defense, so it was like, well, if I can put an extra blocker out there to try to cover people up, why not try to do that? But I think to go, you know, I'm answering 2 questions at one time, but to not have the extra O lineman and have Gunner and Juan out there together, that presents other issues for the defense that they have to deal with, that if it was an extra lineman, they wouldn't have to. And Gunner allows us to do that because he's a factor in the run game.
I get it, and that's a logical explanation. I wonder, maybe it's just Gunnar Helm's overall improvement and development as a player, why last year you'd rather use a 6-0 line than using JT Sanders and Gunnar Helm, but maybe because JT Sanders maybe had an injury at 1.2, that could have contributed. Maybe it's just Gunnar Helm has evolved as a blocker and a player. That's pretty obvious based on the eye test that he's gotten better from last year. So maybe you just don't feel like you need the 6-0 line. But my argument would be, listen, I'll obviously trust Sark, that Sark believes that maybe in the SEC ecosystem that this concept won't translate. But when I looked at Texas using the 6th offensive lineman, the Big 11, Big 12, versus teams that majored or minored in the 3-high safety presentation, rather than traditional looks of the 2-high and single high. So those games, I got Texas over 70% completion percentage, damn near 12 yards per attempt, over 5 yards per rush, with that extra offensive lineman on the field. I think the extremism of it, like I said, I think 12 personnel, you can do similar things, just like Sark is saying. But I think, you know, when you put that extra offensive lineman on the field, it forces them to have to respect that added girth and mass on the field. And the threat of bully ball, if you're just running downhill on them with an extra offensive lineman, I think for a lot of defenses, it's enough for them to get to their run fits and abandon the pre-snap movement and disguise. But I get what Sark's saying. You do lose an eligible wide receiver, essentially, or lose an eligible receiver because you got an extra lineman. He can go out for a pass, but he's not going to be a legit threat to anyone as a pass receiver. I think he did have one catch last year, Malik Agbo did, but I understand what Sark is saying there, but it still works well. So I'm not saying use it a lot because I get you don't want to take an eligible receiver off the field, but against a 3 high, it works. Now, if you can run the ball versus the 3 high, all of this is moot and none of it matters. If you can just run the rock versus 3 high, you got the numbers advantage most of the time. You're going to run downhill and play bully ball. And I think there were times last year where there was the solution for Sark. I'm just going to play bully ball against them because they don't hold up. And there were some defenses that did hold up really well against Texas in the run game. And then Texas had to go to more conceptual schematic advantages, the ones I'm mentioning now. But if you can just line up and run the ball against a 3 high look, man, just run it down their damn throat. Problem is, Texas has an average run game, and they can't run it down anybody's throat. That's just not who they are. And that's fine. That's okay. Texas still win it all with the running game they have, but you go and face another 3 high because Mark Stoops will be crazy not to break it out. I think A&M will break it out. These are both defensive-minded head coaches, and defensive coaches often speak the same language when you're watching film. That's why when Texas had that stretch, right, where they played 3 defensive coaches in a row, it looks like the offense was sputtering a bit. Yeah, because I think the defensive coaches, they were just taking what the last defensive coach had done successfully and just adding on to it. They were just building. They were just stacking. All right. It looked like, Georgia took a little bit. Kirby took a little bit of what Brent Venables did and said, yeah, I like that. I like this. I like that. All right. It's like it's like a value menu. I'm going to take that concept. I'm going to take that cornerback blitz. I'm going to take that delayed rusher. Oh, I like that twist and that stunt. I'm going to take that. This is stuff that I can use. And then he did it really well. And then Clark Lee took what Kirby Smart was doing and said, yeah, you know what? We can't do everything he did because Kirby's got a lot of NFL athletes. We ain't got that, but we can use that cornerback blitz. I'll take that. Oh, yeah, I like that delayed rusher. I'll definitely take that. Ooh, the A-gap blitz. We got good A-gap. We're going to take that too. That's what defensive coaches do. They think they have the same, they speak the same language, right? And I think this is another stretch of defensive coaches you're about to face, right? You're going to face Stoops, who's a defensive coach, and then you're going to face Elko, who's a defensive coach. And I guarantee you they're going to take what they saw in that Arkansas game, and they're going to take that 3 high and use it. So if your running game is working, you don't even need this. You can throw this, you can throw all those notes away. But if your run game ain't working, and your run game earlier in the Arkansas game wasn't clicking, the 6-0 line package works against those teams that a major or minor in the 3 high. So let's say he doesn't want to use the 6-0 line package. He hates that package now. I don't know what the hell Malik Agbo did to him, but he don't like that package. He don't want to play it. All right? He does not like the added beef on the field. He also did something in the Big 12 where he would have four receivers on one side of the field. Now, they weren't all eligible receivers at times because he would cover up one of them at times, essentially using it as an extra blocker because he'd cover them up. Now, the defense would have to determine which one of these guys was covered up and if somebody was. So that's a bit of a deceptive tactic by Sark. But against teams like TCU and against K-State and against Iowa State, man, he used that what I call quads. And he would run out of it and they would throw out of it. And so he would do it out of 12 personnel. He would do it out of 11 personnel, all 4 of those receivers on one side of the field. And think about it. If you're a defense, you have to react to that. You have to respect it, guys. I mean, how lopsided that formation is, you would have to respect it and abandon any disguise you have and get to your assignment right away. Because if they just run the ball over there with quads, they outnumber you probably damn near 2-1 in some of those situations. If you want to have a balanced defense and you want to have more of an even presentation. So no, you would adjust to the formation, an extreme formation like that. And while adjusting, you would give away indicators as to what your front's doing, as to what the coverage is, as to how many safeties you're actually going to have deep. And it worked for Sark. Didn't see it versus Arkansas, but it worked in the Big 12 when he first faced a team that ran 3 high exclusively or majored or just minored in it. He was averaging over 6 yards per rush, over 70% completion percentage. Did have an interception. All right. Did have a sack out of it, but ended up averaging damn near 9 yards per attempt. Those are pretty good numbers. It is the Big 12. There's a difference between the Big 12 and the SEC, but those are pretty good numbers. And so, and he did use the pony package. By the way, you guys know I always say pony package works versus anybody. Doesn't matter what the situation is. Doesn't matter who the opponent, what defense playing, what front they got, what coverage they're playing. Doesn't matter who's in your backfield. Doesn't matter if it's Bijan or Rojo or Jay Brooks or CJ Baxter or Jaden Blue or Trey Wisner. At this point, my numbers and my stats tell me it don't matter who's in the backfield with a pony package. It's still your most explosive, most efficient, and your most effective personnel grouping. So use it more. And even in that game, it was effective versus Arkansas. And my notes tell me that 21 personnel is still effective versus any team that majored or minored in 3 high. My notes from last year, you're under 60% completion percentage, so you're not that efficient, but you're over 14 yards per attempt. You're over 6 yards per rush. You're explosive, which is the whole point of that package. So if you don't want to use a 6 O-line package, I get it. I don't know why we haven't seen it, but we hadn't seen it. Sark don't want to use it. He just even said that audio. I don't want to use it. So he doesn't want to use it. So I do think the quads, the pony package, I was throwing out empty. Empty's hit or miss. Based on my research in the notes, I will admit now empty is hit or miss. You hit on them. You hit on some big plays out of empty versus the 3 high, but it has missed too. It seems like for Quinn, he's not necessarily that comfortable in empty versus 3 high looks, but that's okay. All right. You can also use empty reloads. A reload is when you start out in empty and then you shift the or motion the running back into the backfield, and you say, well, what's the point of that? Because it still gives you indicators about what the defense is doing. They started out with the running back style, put a linebacker out there with the running back, and they go, oh, we're down man. Put a linebacker out there with the running back, shift him back in. All right. And you can find out if that linebacker comes back in with him. You know, okay, I've confirmed man coverage. Got a cornerback out there with that running back. Oh, must be zone. Why the hell would they brace the cornerback on a running back? And then you motion them back to the backfield. Empty reload. Matter of fact, that Trey Wisner 30-yard completion on that mesh rail concept versus Arkansas, which was your longest passing play of the game, by the way, it was empty reload. You had started out empty. You reloaded the backfield with Trey Wisner, and I believe they ended up losing him. I don't know how. They ended up losing him in coverage. And basically, he ended up being your target to motion, which you guys know also I'm a big fan of targets to motion. So I think, if you don't want to use the 6 line package, I get it. I would use quads. I would go pony package. Empty, like I said, more hit and miss out of the empty formation. So maybe empty is not your go-to. He did have some empty versus Arkansas. I think you can use it. I think it fits the theory of extreme formations that will force him to abandon disguise. But like I said, the stats aren't sticky. The stats don't necessarily translate like the quads does, like 6 line package does, like pony package does. It doesn't translate and is not consistent in all of my samples. But the rest of those concepts I brought up, the quads, pony package, 6 line package, they're consistent. It's like Sex Panther, man. 60% of the time, it works every time. So if I'm sorry, that you should have those concepts ready to go, because I am going to make a Black Stradamus guarantee. Kentucky will use it, and then we'll use it. I can almost, if they don't, they're just not good coaches. I mean, it's just that simple. I don't want to. It's just that it really is. I mean, like I said, every statistical category offensively for Texas is adversely affected when it faces a 3 high team, as opposed to a traditional single high or 2 high presentation. All right, so we come back. We'll get into who said that. That's when Patrick plays audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that. We'll do that when we come back right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him hooking us up there. He also hooks us up for the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. And it is a simple question: which disappointment in the NFL has been the most surprising this year? And Dallas Cowboys, 41% of the vote say the Dallas Cowboys disappointment has been the most surprising this year. And then another 33% say the San Francisco 49ers are the biggest surprise of the disappointment so far this season. All right, go check that out at the Horn ATX on X. Time to get to Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that.
O-line and D-line are the reason why we win and lose. Excuse me, not why we lose. They're the reason why we win. Let's take that off the record. They are the reason why we win.
See, CJ Stroud, he's already savvy enough to know they're going to take that and run with it. No, that's why we win. Okay, that's not why we win. Yes, he already knows. I ain't going to allow nobody to take that and use that as some type of headline grabbing point. He's going to put it out there and clarify it. So I like that by CJ. Good job. Good job, CJ.
Yeah, we got a little time for a second one here.
Oh, let's do it.
Peyton, let me tell you something. If I was coaching you, I would give those equipment guys $100 if they batted down one of your balls in 7-on-7. $100 if they batted them down. They would try to bat them down. They wouldn't stand there like your guys did, and like those guys did, and move their rackets out of the way when you throw it. I'd pay him to knock Brady's passes down. Now, the problem was Brady would pay him more. He'd pay him $200 if he went through the whole practice and didn't knock one down.
Smart.
Brady's making more than I was.
That is fantastic. That's Bill Belichick on with the Manning cast. Was that a true story? Or was he just embellishing?
So it was during the thing. Peyton Manning was showing how you work out, and allegedly this is a rumor that they used to do back, that they would put out tennis rackets, and he would have staffers hold tennis rackets up to try and make it so Brady had to throw around where it was. But yes, and then he said that Tom Brady would pay him $200, which sounds dead on Tom Brady.
It does sound dead on Tom Brady. That's awesome if Tom Brady actually did that. I would love to see that confirmed. It was like, no, I paid him $200 extra. Like, Coach, I can do better than that.
How much
is he take money from both?
Like when you see money from both. Yeah, when the staffers were jumping up and down, and he's like, "Why do y'all care so much about this? This is weird. Like, why do you care?" And they're like, "Well, Coach said he'd give us $100. We knocked one down." He goes, "All right, I'll tell you what, $200. Stop messing with my practice."
And then they made money because they made more money because Belichick didn't know, so he still paid them, and they got the money from Brady.
That's one where Tom went over and goes, "Here's $200. Bill doesn't know anything about offense, trust me, this isn't helping."
Yeah, right. This is not helping our execution, guys. Trust me on that. Belichick, I love that. Add tennis rackets up there. All right, there you go. Thanks for all you do, Patrick. Appreciate all the hard work. Thank you guys for joining us as well. We appreciate all you guys for participating in the show today. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. And until next time, hook 'em and peace.